Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, very warm welcome to you. How many of you are here for the first time? Right. How many of you have seen the TV show? Wow, I thought I was more famous than that. But that is the truth. We're on the second series of Movers and Shakers. It's going to be every 2 weeks. It's on Tuesday, and I hope you enjoy it. How many of you here own a business? You run a business, aspiring to run a business one day and become a multi-billionaire? How many of you have failed and screwed up and ended up with no money? Yeah, that's a pretty interesting one, isn't it, that one? Actually messing it up, you know? And the lessons that you get from messing it up are actually really valuable. I'll tell you a little bit about how Movers and Shakers started, why we do this seminar. I mean, no sane person would do a seminar like this because of the amount of effort that it takes to do it and to fly these wonderful people from all the way from England come over. We've done, this is the third seminar now we've done. And I think what happened was we were doing some training for MCB at one point, and I went to an event. Let's just say it was an event, and it was an entrepreneurship event, and people were sitting down on some stools, and the banter was going on. And I don't know, but it was one of these things for me. It wasn't very inspiring, and I thought to myself, of all the people I've been so blessed to have had as mentors, and I said, you know what would be really cool is actually to fly these people over and do a really proper seminar, because obviously we had the venue because of Eden Island VIP. And that's what we did. It was Dizzy Entrepreneur, and the lady was Rachel Eleanor from Dragon's Den. Who's seen Dragon's Den? Anybody? A few people have. Yeah, that's where we started. And it's been downhill from then, I suppose. People have really got some valuable insight. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce my first guest. So let's put his thing up there. Right, Marcus. Slideshow. Okay, now Marcus Cauchi, a little bit about Marcus. I told this story this morning, actually. About 20 years ago, I was invited to an event which was called the President's Club in England. And I saw this chap with it's like a mechanical car, you know those little cars with the radio control that you play with. And it was quite funny because we're all sitting down, and this chap actually went to do something. They were just, like kids playing with this little car. And then one of them had a shock, and I wondered what it was all this about. And Marcus was explaining, and he said the first thing that the reason why people buy is because of pain. And it was just a take on the same subject that I hadn't heard before, put in that way. And then I was introduced to this whole selling system, which absolutely changed my life. And to be honest with you, Marcus has been mentoring me on and off ever since. Eleanor and I go and meet him in England, and he gives us some of these amazing insights. And when we met the last time, he said, well, when do I get to come to Seychelles? So this time, he's in Seychelles, and make the best out of him. He doesn't come here he's not here every week. And if he has a really good time, hopefully we'll have him back next year. Mike's been here 3 times now. But his insights are really quite something. So, as the old saying goes, without further ado, please put your hands together for Marcus Cauchi.
Thank you. Is that the right one?
Okay, take this.
Yeah.
Just got to start it.
I just want to make sure you got the right one. Yes. Okay. Morning, all. My name's Marcus Cauchi. I'm a fitness instructor. Essentially what I do is I work with businesses, individuals, and I help them remove the waste, the fat, the friction from their business. And I tend to be somebody who asks the uncomfortable, awkward questions. A client of mine recently did a customer interview with me, and he described me as his tormentor. My job is not to be your friend. My job is to hold up the ugly mirror and have you see what's real, what's not, so that you can get out of your own way. Today we're going to be focusing on an issue which I understand is prevalent throughout Seychelles if you're a founder or an employer, which is hiring. How many of you consider hiring to be difficult? And hiring well to be difficult? Okay, so hiring is the single most important function of any leader or manager. And the problem is, if you mishire, it is also the single highest hidden cost in your business. How many of you have paid a very heavy price for bad hires? Okay, Peter, give us some idea of what the cost was besides money. So repeat business, reputation, and how much of your time, Sabine, gets sucked into doing the work that you hire people to do, but you have to step in? Yeah, extreme. So how many of you have not got a business yet, but you're thinking about going into business for yourself? Show your hands. So only 3 of you. 4, 5. Okay, all these people in purple shirts, are you pre-revenue, or have you all got businesses up and running now? Okay, so this is a participatory exercise, so you have to get involved, otherwise it doesn't work. So let me ask the question again. Who has not got a business yet? Lovely. Right, now I've got a sense of how many people in the room. How many of you are really well established and been going 10 or more years? Okay, and the in-betweens? Okay, so pretty reasonable mix then. So what I'd like you to do is turn to the person next to you, so pair up, and simply answer this question. Why are you here today, and what do you want to get from it? Go. Okay, so anyone want to volunteer why you're here so I get a sense of what you want to achieve, so if I've got the wrong slides, then I can refocus. So anyone, you sir, why are you here? No, you're turning around, I was looking at you. You can delegate someone else if you prefer.
I'm mostly here because my sir said I should come.
Right, so you're a sendee. Okay, this happens a lot. Okay, how many of you are sendees rather than volunteers? So you're here as hostages. Go on. Excellent, right. So anytime you want to walk out, go, I won't tell. Okay, now, hiring is really hard. You're dealing with people. And people are not logical. We are creatures of story and emotion. And emotion tends to make us largely irrational. So, as a manager, as a founder, your job is to tap into someone else's motivation. Okay? And one of the challenges here is that many people believe you can motivate people. How many job descriptions have you said must be able to motivate a team? Take that shit out of every job description because it's impossible, let me repeat that, impossible to motivate anyone to do anything ever. You can inspire, you can bribe, you can beat them with a carrot or a stick, yeah? But you cannot motivate. But what you can do is tap into someone else's motivation. And what we're going to look at today is how you can hire despite the context in which you have to hire. I've had several conversations over the last couple of days and with Claude and Eleanor over months about the hiring conditions within Seychelles. And I'm told that there is a limited hiring pool, that the motivation of people is very variable. There's a high degree of turnover because there's an easy cushion because of the way the government and welfare system is set up, plenty of jobs, and really very few consequences of moving from one job to another. Is that fair? Is that a fair summary? Okay. Tough shit, people. That's the context in which you have to operate. You have no choice. So you can either be a victim of it, or you can work out how to thrive through that chaos and succeed despite it. So let me ask this question. Are there any businesses on the island who hire well, keep their staff, their customers are happy and come back? Are there any examples of those type of businesses? So is it possible that your schema, the way you see the world, may be slightly out of kilter with what could be real for you? Just want to plant that seed of doubt. So we're not going to judge, but we're going to look at what actually happens here, and we're going to work in groups to try and solve some of these problems for yourself. So when you first think about hiring here, and again, work with your pairs, what's the first one or two words that come up that you think, oh, that's how hiring is in Seychelles? So you've got 30 seconds. Go. It helps if you talk and face each other. Okay, so let's have some feedback on that. Nicole, what are the words that came to mind when you were discussing it?
I have the word fickle that comes in. It's basically because I find that there is sometimes a lack of interest.
Absolutely.
People apply without necessarily being interested, and very often not even knowing what they applied for. So it makes it extremely tedious.
Understood. Tedious is another great word to describe.
That's my 3.
And how many of you would rather have your teeth pulled than go through another round of recruitment? Okay. So again, what we tend to find is that recruitment is seen as a chore, not the single most important function of any manager or leader. And if you only recruit as a reaction to having a vacancy, then you're always pulling from the available pool who applies for your job at that time. How many of you have an ongoing recruitment process where you're always looking to recruit, and you say something along the lines of, Patrick, I haven't got a job at the moment for you. However, if a vacancy does come up and I approach you, is there any reason why you wouldn't be willing to accept it? And you keep going, building a recruitment pipeline, because I see recruitment building the bench of candidates identically to the way I see salespeople building their pipeline. Because if you do this practice, it never takes you longer than a month to fill a vacancy. And you fill it with candidates who are suitable because you've had enough runway to work out who the good candidates are and filter out the bad ones. Now, I know it's a chore and you're already very busy, and part of the reason you're very busy is because you're not doing the coaching that you need to do because you're so busy putting out fires and fixing problems, and because you're spending time trying to fill vacancies in a reactive way. So, What are the parts of hiring that are shaped by the nature of the Seychelles employment market? What are the external things that are factors? There's a small talent pool, there's a slow pace, there's the government safety nets, there's high turnover of staff. About 20% of the employees are from overseas, so they may get homesick, they may leave, all sorts of problems like that. But those are outside of your control. So let go of that. There is a rule, let go or be dragged. Yeah? And I think one of the big problems that I see in many businesses, whether it's here or back in the UK or in the US or Europe, is that leaders have a tendency to get emotionally attached to stuff over which they have zero control. So, what can you shape? When a hire doesn't work out, what usually goes wrong before they even started? So what I'd like you to do, again in your pairs, is take 2 minutes to list the things that are early warning signals that you've hired a lemon. Yeah? And you're going to end up regretting that hire. So most of you have hired at least 1 or 2 people. And let's start with an administrator, because that's probably a fairly common hire. So if you were hiring an administrator, a PA, an executive assistant, admin of some sort, what would be the early warning signals that you've got Mr. Bean instead of James Bond? Okay? In your groups. Do you have any? Have you ever employed anybody? In that case, can I ask you to come and sit in between these two, and then you can learn from them and they can learn from you? Yeah? Okay. Peter, Patrick, these 2 chaps are going to come and mix with you guys, and then what I'd like them to do is you to learn from them and them from you. There you go, sorted. Well, if you go the other side, there you go. Okay. So, Elton, let's have some of the things that you've recognized.
First is that, first thing that you see is that they tell you they know the stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you give them the opportunity, and then they can't really deliver. I've passed through that before with.
Okay, so how many of you have found, stay standing, you're not getting away that easily. How many of you have tried to delegate to someone and then they mess it up? Okay. Do you have a checklist when you delegate? Okay. Are the standards explicit and clear in terms of what is expected, what they need to do, by when, and to what standard? Okay. And so when an early warning comes up that they're not following those standards, what do you do about it?
You have to fix it yourself.
You jump in to fix it yourself. That's a typical response, which makes you, when you first start a business, you become an anchor and you're a source of stability. But after a while, you become a bottleneck, and the anchor is dragging along the sea bottom, ripping up the coral and holding you back. Okay? So what other things, what other early warning systems have you, or early warning signals have you seen?
Anyway, From what I can see is it depends on the lifestyle also, because first thing, if somebody likes to party, right, and you have to understand that you're going to have trouble at the end of the month when it's come to, they cannot come to work because from the past business I did for my manufacturing company, a little story is that we found ourselves, me and my partner, we had to deliver this stuff because the staff did not come to work, right?
Right.
A group of them, they decided to go out, and then they couldn't come to work, and then we had to actually do their work for that day.
So how can you test whether or not someone keeps their word?
That's quite difficult, because when you're hiring, they will tell you everything you want to hear. No? They will
Say again?
When you're hiring, they will tell you everything you want to hear. You will ask them...
That was the answer to a different question. My question wasn't, what do they lie to you about?
Yeah.
My question was, how do you test whether someone keeps their word?
How do I test?
Yeah.
Well, first you assign the task to them, and you can measure from there, right?
But that's after you've hired them.
You mean during the hiring?
Before you hire them.
How do I test?
Surely it's better to prevent a bad hire than have a bad hire and then pay the price. Yeah? So one of the tactics we use is you have a 5-minute telephone interview. And it's why you, why us, why you for us. Those are the 3 critical questions. And then you ask them, Sabine, do you have a CV? To which the answer is either yes or no. If they say yes, when can you get it to me? If they say no, when can you get one to me? Are you sure you can make it by that time? And then if they send it before that time, or even 1 second before, then they carry on in the recruitment process. If they are 1 second late, you disqualify them. Now, how many of the people, do you reckon, who you mishired would have failed to get you the CV on time? What? None of them would? But again, the question isn't, do you always start with the CV? Because let's face it, a CV is a piece of marketing collateral, and it's largely packed full of lies. Fabrications and elaborations. So don't trust the CV. Never trust the CV in a recruitment process, because essentially they're only showing you their beautiful side, and then you wake up in the morning next to them. Yeah? How's that working out for you? Right. Absolutely.
Workforce here in Seychelles, yeah. It's another challenge.
I get it.
Yes,
but
it's not easy.
Those are the cards that you have been dealt.
Pardon?
Those are the cards that you have been dealt. Yeah?
Yes.
So you can't complain that you've got this hand of cards. You have to play them because there is no choice.
You have to support, you have to explain them how it works and everything, but still, it's very difficult. But that's the one if you think you have some good ones and they still can't make it,
Understood.
And then there's the whole other aspect.
Hiring is the hardest part of the job.
Exactly.
And the challenge here is that if we abdicate and we resign ourselves to the fact that it's a difficult employment market and a difficult hiring market, then we're essentially paralyzed to just accept that. I'm here today to challenge that because I fundamentally believe that people do not come to work to do a bad job. Now, mostly, we don't really understand what their motivation is. When I ask managers, typically, When you were going through the recruitment process and you asked that individual why they come to work and who they're doing it for, they've never really asked that question. You do? Okay. But the rest of the room, how many of you actually ask those questions? Couple. We'll come to skill in a minute. Okay. So, typically, you can turn an A player into a B player in the first week. How do you do that? By having them spend time with your B and C players. So that first week is critical. Do you have a structured onboarding process? First of all, if you're already an employer, how many of you have a structured onboarding process? What do they need to know? By when do they need to know it? Where can they find the information, and how will they be measured? 2. Okay. 3. Okay. So, again, what I would like you to do in your groups is to spend a bit of time working out we'll just think about the administrator role to keep it simple. What are the things that would make their first week straightforward and clear so that they didn't have to guess? What are the things that they would need to know? Where could they find them? And how will they be measured in their first week? So spend 2 minutes on that. We've only got 15 minutes left now. Right. Okay. In that case, I can't run through the whole program. You said I had an hour. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So you should have about 20 minutes or 25 minutes left.
So what can we do in that first week in order to make their lives clear, certain, and so that you're setting them up to succeed? What did we talk about? Over in the back, what did you guys talk about? Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we talked about making it clear, establishing what is expected of them, and sharing resources and allowing them to also share their knowledge in terms of what that person expects as well, so that it's aligned. So having that structure in place to have a checklist of if there's policies, if there's understanding the vision or the operation, or visiting certain sites or whatever it is. So just establishing the facts and establishing what is expected of them.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, one of the lessons that I've learned the hard way is that every time you answer a question, you steal a learning opportunity. So ask them, if I wasn't here, what would you do? Have them build the process. So give them the outcome, and then ask them to build the process up. It takes a lot longer initially. And if you're time poor and you're stretched and you're under pressure, the temptation is, well, let's just get it done, give them the checklist. But actually, if you have them build the process and them build the checklist, then they are invested in it, and it's their data. And one of the lessons that I've learned over the many years I've been doing this is people never argue with their own data, but they'll argue with yours till you're blue in the face. So if you give them a clear direction in terms of that's the hill, go conquer it, and then have them explain how they would do it, and then show them how they can do it using as much of their framework as possible, so their fingerprints are all over it, their vision, their values, their language. Then they build that process. And one of the other things that I strongly recommend is the last person in is responsible for onboarding the next person, because they're the one who's closest to the pain and the problems of doing so. Yeah? Now, the other thing that tends to happen is because it's so hard to recruit, and because we know that people are fickle and that they're going to probably move on, is that sometimes we let things slide. How many of you have been guilty of letting things slide and not stopping a problem early? Any of you? Yeah? We've all done it. Yeah? So, privately, because we're short on time, what I'd like you to do is spend a little bit of time identifying where those moments occur where you let things slide that perhaps you shouldn't. And it's not about trying to catch them getting things wrong. In fact, one of the best skills that you can develop is catching people doing things right. So the rule is be hard on the process and kind to the people. Now, that doesn't mean be their friend. It means be respectful. It means give them voice, agency. And this is the hard part. If you want people to trust you, you have to give trust first. And if you've been burnt a few times, that's really difficult. Okay? So, where are we now? So, one of the lessons that I've learned along the way is that a new hire puts you, the company, the job, the boss, their peers, the customers, the product on probation for 4 months. Have you noticed how often a new hire leaves within that 120-day period? Yeah? So build your onboarding process back from 120 days and be really clear. Over these 120 days, this is what you will accomplish, this is what is expected of you, and this is what is expected of you every day. If you follow this plan, you will succeed in this role. If you don't, at any point, then we will have to have a conversation, which may result in training and coaching, and if the behavior doesn't improve, in termination. So be very clear and explicit up front. And decide what matters, what really matters to get the job done. And cut out anything that doesn't. The stuff that doesn't matter. And build checklists. And explicitly state the standards that are expected of them. On day 39, you will be able to do X, Y, and Z to this standard, and it will be measured in this way. And something that most busy managers and founders don't generally do is a daily huddle where you bookend the top of the day, the start of the day and the end of the day. So, for example, you're in a packing business and a shipping business, teaching them for 10 minutes in the morning how to sharpen their blade. How many minutes do you think you might recover per person per day if they have a sharp blade in a packing business? It might be 5, it might be 10, but if you've got 60 people, that's a lot of time cumulatively. And you win in increments. You don't win in great big chunks. So, we'll skip over that for now. Okay. What's one thing that you're going to do tomorrow, on Monday, that is simple, it's doable, and it creates zero pressure for you and for the employee, but will improve their performance, and it will give you just a little bit more peace of mind? What can you do? So again, in your groups, think about the change that you can make by doing less. How can you delegate effectively? And this is one of the other things. You've got to make sure that you delegate, you don't abdicate. So Elton was talking about delegating, and one of the challenges there is that very often when you delegate, you think they have understood, but they haven't. So have them feed back to your total satisfaction that not only do they understand it, but they've internalized it, and that they are committed to taking that action. And ask them, do I have your word? How many of you use that question with your teams? Do I have your word? It's very powerful. Once someone's given their word, it's much harder to back out and shortchange you. Yeah? So I would recommend that you spend a little bit of time thinking about where are the bottlenecks in the business and what can I do to make my life and their life easier and simpler? How can I chunk the process down to more steps, but get them to perfect those steps? So hiring feels hard for all of these reasons. And it's the environment. It's not your fault. I absolutely get that. But the reality is that you have to work within those conditions because you have no control over them. So hires fail typically because we tend to rush. And because we're in a hurry to fill a vacancy, because we're reacting, we filter less thoroughly than we perhaps should. And that first week, sometimes we're really, really busy and we leave them with the people we probably shouldn't. Okay? We've got to be really clear about what these real standards are and make them explicit instead of invisible. And do not rescue. Rescuing is helping without boundaries, without permission. And we've all done it. You know, if you've got kids, you've probably said, oh, let me show you how, rather than ask them how they would do it. And create the simplest possible systems you can. Break them down into steps that a 5-year-old could understand, and then have them tell you what their understanding of it is, and then have them show you. And you practice for perfection. Perfect practice makes perfect. I play golf very badly, but if I play my usual game and I continue to do that, I reinforce being able to make the ball spin off into the sand, the water, the trees, the long grass, and it doesn't go straight. Okay? So we don't want to practice bad habits. And we also have to have very clear consequences early. And be absolutely explicit about what their role is. What is the objective of the role? What's the job to be done? In a year from now, Patrick, I expect that you will be able to A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Is that the job that you are buying from me and that you are willing to commit to? Do I have your word? What will you do? What would you suggest I do in the event that you do not perform? That's another great question. Have them work out what the consequences are. Okay? And you get what you tolerate, sadly. So, what do they need on day 1 to 7? Clear expectations. Show them examples of good work. Have them do the work. Mess it up, because failure is your best teacher. Show them how to do it well. Okay? and then create a practice program so that they learn how to do the job. And have them make one small win per day. One of the ways of doing this is creating a habit of journaling, where they capture 3 lessons a day, and they record 1 win. Learn how to ask questions safely. Why questions are very powerful, and historically they've been my favorite ones, but they make people defensive. Why did you do that, Patrick? Yeah? And create a calm and consistent operating rhythm. I have a friend, Tom Schodorf, who took the business he was leading from 30 million to 1.3 billion in 5 years, and he ran his entire business off 1 page with an operating rhythm. And it was all about communication. Communication with his direct line, with his shareholders and the board, with the team on a wider basis, with suppliers and partners. But the first week decides the culture. Create small hiring tests, pre-hire, that help you to identify whether or not you're hiring a lemon or someone who's going to succeed. Keep them short, make them very real, and look for things like... I've got a friend, John, who runs a recruitment business. His salespeople, his recruiters, bill 500% more than the average revenue in their industry, because he hires for one quality above all else, which is trustworthiness. Are they high on trust? They can be moderate on competence, but they have to be high on trust. So hire for trust over skill. Then, show, don't tell. Don't tell them how to do it, because they'll forget. Have them mess it up first, then show them step by step by step. And then have them do it repeatedly. And have those 10-minute training sessions every morning. And focus on the fundamentals. The most important critical behaviors that deliver the outcome. Early standards matter. So, timekeeping, clarity of communication, attitude, effort, and honesty about mistakes. And this, again, is one of the most important skills that managers and leaders can develop. Don't punish failure. Punish hiding it. If someone hides a failure, then absolutely come down on them like a ton of bricks. But encourage people to admit their mistakes. I was talking to Michelle, who the chap in the cafe yesterday. Michelle, yeah. So Michelle runs an engineering business. You can't argue with the laws of physics or gravity. So if there is a mistake, he wants to find out about it early, because in engineering, if you allow a mistake to carry on, it becomes a crisis and it can kill people. So what we want to do is capture the mistakes early, and in order to do that, you have to be vulnerable first. So when you make a mistake, admit it so that they can see, actually, that's the way we do things around here. And what I would suggest is you keep a failure log. And on Friday, you sit down and you go through the list of failures and how are we going to make sure that never happens again? And you turn it into process, because process sets you free. And develop a 120-day onboarding process that creates the fundamentals in the first 30 days. Then, what you want to do is start building consistency, and you want to empower your people to make the safest and best decisions for themselves so they don't have to wait for you or delegate up. Because that's another thing that I hear from founders all the time. They're always waiting for me to make the decision. I had an accountant client who was working 17 to 21-hour days, and she was being interrupted 35 times a day on average. Now, it takes you 7 minutes, on average, to regain your concentration, plus the time to do the work that you're paying other people to do. So I hear that it's hard, but that's not a reason not to do the hard work up front. Then, in the next 60 to 90 days, create independence so that they can function without you, and then really focus on them owning that job. Have them write out their own job description, the job that they really bought, not the one you sold them. And have them mentor other people. Creating a learning culture is one of the safest ways of keeping people in a business, and also it reduces the workload for the founders and management layer. What you can shape standards, you can shape clarity, you can shape training, you can institute early consequences and stop the problem early. In traditional Chinese medicine, you pay the doctor a fortune when you're healthy. When you're sick, they have to pay for your treatment. Take that same approach. And don't rescue. Let people fail. Don't jump in and save the day. Let them make a mistake. Obviously, if it's going to be catastrophic, jump in. But most of these mistakes are little. So let them make the mistake and then coach them through that. So, Naomi, where are you? There. Naomi, I'm curious. What just happened there? And then you'll respond, okay, tell me, how did that come about? And use what and how questions, not why questions, because they'll be defensive. Okay? And have them document everything. So you create an onboarding manual. One of the most powerful things that you can do is have an onboarding manual so that, and it's built by the employees, not by you. Because if they create it, it's far more likely to be realistic. And if there's a problem, always have the person who is closest to the cause of the problem or the consequences of the problem be the person in charge of running the fix and designing the system. Not you. Your job is supervisory, it's architectural. But their job is to find the solution. And then you create a workplace where people are interdependent and they feel valued, and you're changing their behavior permanently. So what changes when you do this? You end up with better hires, greater clarity, you end up with fewer surprises. I mean, how many of you like a good surprise at work? Yeah? As a manager, you want predictability. I would rather have a boringly predictable salesperson who consistently hits quota than someone who comes in occasionally with a bluebird or a whale. Yeah? Because that messes things up. It may be great in terms of the numbers, but operations suddenly gets it in the neck because all of a sudden they've got to service 17 clients they weren't expecting. No surprises. And you want to build that stronger culture by having the team do all the heavy lifting. It shouldn't be on the founder. The moment you become that bottleneck, especially after you're about 10, 15 people, it just turns into a horrible experience. And you'd probably set the business up so that you could be free, you could build financial independence, maybe even generational wealth. And actually, you're spending 18 hours a day working for the people that you employ. Not much fun. And the business must not rely on you. How many of you could confidently take 3 months off and know that you would come back and the business would be healthier? That's a design problem, people. Okay? So your next steps. Create a test, create a standard, create a checklist, establish very clear expectations, and have one conversation with somebody who you know has talent, but they're maybe not performing to their best standard. And the question is, did you hire them this way, or did you make them this way? If you hired them that way, that's on you. If you made them that way, that's on you. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. As I'm sure we all know from living in Seychelles, staff and getting them to do the right things is always an art. Always an art. For the young people that are here, I'd be interested to see what you got from any of that. Anybody? it might not really mean an awful lot to you now, but what you'll find is when you start working, there's very good understanding bosses, and then there's the ones like Mike would call seagull managers. They'll hardly ever praise you, but if you do something wrong, they will come down on you. So you want to have one of the good ones, and then you'll become a boss and employ people. So that's going to be quite interesting as well. Now, and again, different businesses are at different stages. Some people may have one person, 5 people. I mean, the way I kind of solved the problem was to rely on machines. And it started when I was a musician. Now, this was a classic case. I was a professional entertainer for about 3 or 4 years. And what used to happen was I used to go and practice when I really wanted to be a pro. I used to go and practice with a band, and my friend had a fantastic band. I remember that song by Michael Jackson called Black or White. They could play it straight off the CD, and it sounded like that. Any Bob Marley song they could play. And also they would do Sega dances as well. Now, Seychellois people can play Sega very well, but other people from different nationalities, you think they might miss a beat. And there was Ken, who's Seychellois, and then I think he had 2 or 3 Indian guys, and you would actually think they were Seychellois. That's how good they were. But the problem is, because they were human beings, something always went wrong. Somebody had a bad attitude for whatever reason. He had an argument with his girlfriend. Somebody else was late. So I turn up there with all my kit because I had a good job. And then I said, watch this, guys. I had a sequencer, so you press a button and the bass comes. And I'll never forget that day when Ken was so amazed by all this equipment. And he said to the bass man, that's it, you're out of a job now. And he said, one day we were talking, he said, Claude, you seem to be so relaxed. You go out, you do your gig, you get paid. I said, yeah, well, I got nobody to argue with. He said, I'm still going in the shed trying to practice with these guys, getting them to learn a song, and somebody always drops the ball. And then it's the way you deal with it. So I took that theory all the way through. So I tend to work with machines as much as I can. But in some businesses, you can't do that. You have to work with human beings. Right, okay, so how many people saw Helga on Tuesday on the TV? Anybody? Okay, there's a few of us, right? Okay, some people did. Okay, great. Hope you enjoyed it. Now, yeah, that was quite something to put together. So I'll remind you, because I'm just going to play the little the preview for those of you who haven't seen it. Helga became a wedding dress specialist and then a restaurateur. So she had to gently navigate the monumental task.
I had a dream. I knew I wanted to get her the wedding dress, and I was going to find a way to get her the wedding dress. I was too excited, and I wanted to do something that everybody would like and something that was modern, that would fit the aesthetic of Victoria.
An amazing feat for a young lady, which you'll see as her story unfolds. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Helga. Helga, take your mic. Let me get my phone. So there you are, an audience with Helga. So for the young people here especially, I want you folks to really take note of what she's going to say, because you could be in her position, in a few years' time. So Helga.
Okay. Good morning. I think I tried to write a small introduction on my phone. This is new to me because I'm old school. I was trying to write on a piece of paper, and then my 14-year-old daughter said, "You're so millennial. Where are you going with a piece of paper? Just do it on your phone." So here I am for the first time trying to use a phone for my introduction. Please bear with me. Okay, so who here wants to be a businesswoman or businessman, or basically wants to start their own business? Hands, please. I want to see. Okay. Well, I surely didn't, but I'm here. However, I am labeled as what we would call an entrepreneur. Why am I one? Or better yet, what is an entrepreneur? That is because I saw an opportunity, I took the risk, I gambled with my future quite a lot, and created 2 small businesses Therefore, an entrepreneur can be described as someone who created a business opportunity by taking risks, being very persistent, goal-oriented, and adaptable to change, right? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Helga. I am only 33 years old, and I have 2 small businesses, as you saw if you did watch the program, Exquisite Bridals and Poppy Cafe. Exquisite Bridals, basically, we make custom wedding dresses, bridesmaid dresses, and also lovely, sparkly, pretty dresses for your favorite females. Poppy Cafe is a small cafe based in Victoria. I would say slightly war-themed because I was inspired by the Second World War. And it's situated at Tobu Club. I'm not sure if you know where it is, but it's next to Gordon Square, or what we would call Freedom Square. That building has been here since 1941. So it's been there a long time, way before I was even born. My entrepreneurial journey hasn't been a straight road, I can say. It was more like me climbing a quite crooked ladder, falling off a few times. Superman never came to save me. But the good thing is, each time I was falling off, I managed to get myself back up. And that was a journey for about 8 years if I add both businesses together.
Okay, so Helga, thank you very much. The question I'd like to ask you.
Thank you.
So the question I'd like to ask you, your very first business that you started, what was the hardest part of actually making it a business? So somebody gives you money for something, like I remember when I learned how to do websites and someone gave me, and I thought it was my music agent, and I went, great. But then, and I was still living at home, then I had to like get the next one, and the next one. Like how, how did you manage to make it into a business? How did you manage to get your first 5 customers?
Okay. I would say that was a challenge, but not really a challenge, all at the same time. It was not a challenge because starting it off, I did not know what I was getting myself into. I was taking it easy, but I did not realize I was making big steps. By the time I realized I was making big steps, I was way far in the business. And I actually started it with no money, absolutely zero, nothing. I was employed. I had only my savings. I had my first daughter when I was only 19 years old, so that was already me struggling. But it was just a random idea. So I knew from way back that I loved wedding dresses. I loved everything about weddings. You know, as young girls, we dream of getting married. Well, that's me. I don't know about you guys. Yeah, always dreamed about getting married. Still no ring, but that's not the problem here. I looked at wedding dresses in my spare time. I was scrolling online. And by a random chance, I like to read forums online. So by a random chance, I was in a forum about wedding dresses, and I found myself a supplier. In the spur of the moment, I emailed them, and they responded to my surprise. So they gave me a few tips about how to start a business in the industry, and if I would ever be interested, I could contact them. So I took the contacts, placed it there. I didn't think about it for a while. But then one random post on Facebook, I will never forget. I was sitting at home, and one lady said, "Hi, I'm looking for somebody who can make wedding dresses." I just said, "I can make it." I didn't even think about anything. And I gave her my number. She called me back like 5 minutes later. And I just said, "Yes, I can make it." I did not have a plan. I did not know what I was doing. But I invited her to my house. I did a whole setup in my mom's veranda on my chairs, and I spoke to her. I gave her everything I knew about wedding dresses. And she said, "Okay, I want to make my dress with you." So that was me struggling, trying to find how I was gonna set this up. And eventually she decided on a dress and bridesmaid dresses and flower girl dresses. And as we make it custom made, I had to get measurements. That was my first time. I did not even know what I was doing. I was actually panicking on that day. But me being confident, I did not show her I was scared. I took her measurements. I sent my first measurement to the supplier. They were actually nice. They gave me the dresses on credit so I could start the business. Yeah, I got my first dress. Magically, everything was perfect. I was happy. I was like, okay, I'm all set. And then I had to do the fitting. I had nowhere. So I had to use my mom's bedroom while she was away at work. I did not ask for permission. I snuck the clients inside the house, did all the fitting. Everything was nice. I broke her curtain because, you know, in those lovely videos, they all hang the wedding dresses on the... I tried, and I broke it, but that's besides the point. And that's how my business started. So I got a few customers from word of mouth. I set up my Facebook page, and within the first year of my business, from the sales I made, I managed to build my shop, got everything set up, and after a year, my business boomed. I was the talk of the town, and I could be selling at least 30 dresses per month before COVID. And then COVID happened, but that's another story.
Helga, in Seychelles, I keep hearing, it's like, again, some of Marcus's slides, people make excuses as to why they can't do things. Mm-hmm. Probably the most common myth is about, I can't start a business because there's no money, and, bank loan, the bank won't give me any money. I can't start a business. So they don't do anything at all. What have you got to say about that?
The thing is, if you want to achieve something, there's always different means and ways of achieving your goals. For example, I started with no money, but here in Seychelles, I think there's different avenues set up for one to start a business. So saying no funding, in my opinion, is not good enough, because starting a business can be difficult, yes, especially in Seychelles, there's different challenges, but funding shouldn't be an issue. For example, in my context, my business started as customer funding, and we also have what we now have, the seed capital grant, where they actually give you between 50,000 to 100,000, I'm not sure of the exact amount, for you to start off your business. So saying you can't start because no funding is not okay, because you need to have the determination. You need to want that thing. When you have the drive, you can definitely achieve a lot of things.
Can you explain customer funding for the younger people?
So it's basically when you start a business, I want to use myself as an example. You do not have the funding, but the customer actually pays you beforehand for the goods that they want to purchase or the services. Let's say they have a deposit, and then you can use that part to start your business, and the rest will become your profit, and you move on from there.
Thank you very much. That's a good example. As Mike Southern would know, I'm sure Richard Branson had a business which he started, Virgin Customer Funding, where the plane flight was cancelled, and then he got a whiteboard and went around the airport and then said, who wants to buy a thing? So they all paid for it, and then he paid for the ticket. So that's really a prime thing, customer funding. Now, let's move on. One thing that really got me is, I think it's difficult to, you can't convince anybody to do anything, but sometimes if people are used to doing things one way and you tell them to do it another way, it's always hard because they're used to doing it the other way. Now, the Tobruk Club was a club where these veterans, they fought in the Second World War in the River Tobruk in Egypt. And they were veterans, so they were quite old and set in their ways. If you think about that. Older people set in their ways. Now, what Helga did somehow is you talk about having a big hurdle. She got these people to agree that basically she would turn this old comfortable settee, if you will, the old comfortable club, into some, a very modern place and a functional restaurant. Well, how long did it take, and what was the biggest part, and did you ever think of giving up, and did you ever think that was too difficult?
It actually took me 1.5 years to convince them. That's with meeting them once every month. They were so hard-headed. At one point, I did want to give up, to be honest. But after getting to know them and understanding their point of view, I had to, sorry to say this, I had to play on a little bit on their weaknesses. Yes, and we were going back and forth, because they really loved that place. It meant something to them. It had history. And they did not just want to give it up. They thought they were giving away part of their identity. But when I told them about me incorporating all the aspects of the place, the history, the Second World War, I think I sold it to them after 1.5 years. And at that point as well, they were getting a bit old, sorry. So they couldn't manage the place anymore. And since I've been there way before, I started convincing them. As my grandparents, great uncles, they were all war veterans. I've been going there since I was small. I think they wanted to entrust me with the place instead of just leaving it there. So eventually I managed to convince them why the cafe would work instead of just leaving it a hall, and they would come, sit at look at each other on chairs that were broken. I turned it into a place where they could come and mingle.
So the other thing is you actually reassured them that you would keep the spirit, and you called it Poppies,
yes.
And it's themed, it's got this very strong veteran theme.
Yes.
So that was what convinced
Even our menu is named after different key aspects of the Tobuk War. So we have like our Tobuk Club sandwich, we have our Fortress Panini, the Bunker Burger. So I tried as much as possible to keep everything so the place means something.
Yeah, it's a very nice story actually, and it's quite a nice place. And the other thing that I was going to say to you as well, I'm sure people here aspire to run their own businesses. How many people here have any desire to run a business, whether you're working for somebody or not working for somebody? Anyone? Yeah, a lot of people do, right? So what would you say to people who are in a position now where they may be getting a paycheck or something, but they really want to run their own business? What advice would you give them?
You need to get out of your comfort zone. As long as you stay in there way too long, you will never do anything. I did 2 times. And the second time around, actually, to be honest, I was really struggling. I met so many different circumstances that were set to make me fail one way or the other. I had a fire. I had the storm that broke everything. I had people who wanted to take my idea and start it, trying to kick me, But I managed to finally stand. And even COVID came. I was so persistent that I tried to set up this business during a pandemic. When the country was struggling, they were saying no big expenses. I was on my way to APSA to pay for a container to import all my things. I did not give up. They did not give me permission to open the cafe because of social distancing. I had to fight them. Let me just start with like 5 tables and then we'll see from there. So you have to be persistent. There's no excuse when it comes to building your dream.
And the last question to you then, Helga, is support. In my experience, it's always nice to have a partner that says, go on, you can do this. Or whether it was your father, your mother, go on, go and see the person, make another phone call or whatever. If you're on your own, sometimes, that could be difficult, or you could be with a partner and say, so you're wasting your time with that, or with a parent or whatever. So, how did that play out for you? How important was support? How much support did you get when you were doing all these things?
I would say support was a major part of my achievement, and I will always say that because I had the help and the backing of my family whilst I was making crazy life decisions. My mom was there supporting me, even if she was telling me, you're crazy, but at the end of the day, she told me, wow, unfairly, yeah? So my family, they were a big part of my support system, and that includes every member of my family, my kids, my uncles who were there helping me to lift things, because at one point I was so broke, I couldn't even afford casual labor. So my uncles were there helping me lift things. I had the bright idea of getting this really huge cake display unit that weighed, 800 kilos. I got the forklift to lift it up out of the container. And when I got to the cafe, I had 2 people that did not work. So I had to call my uncles, get 9 people to help me lift out 800 kilos. So if it was not for them, my cousins helping me to do the wiring, setting up my, my music system. So it was team effort. So as long as you have one strong support system behind you, I think that's one step up on the ladder.
Okay, thank you very much, Helga. Parting words, one piece of advice before you go to the young ones especially.
As I would always like to say it, just do it. There's no excuse, just do it. You will sit on your dreams, you will wait for I don't know what, you will achieve nothing at the end of the day. So, like I said, get out of your comfort zone and start building your dreams. Because you have now. You can't wait until you're 60 and then want to start. You start now. I managed before the age of 30, and so can anybody else.
Helga, thank you very much. Very inspiring young lady.
I think I have my first question. Yes. Yes.
Are you a seamstress by any chance?
Okay, so to answer the first question, I was not a seamstress. I knew absolutely nothing. I had to go learn everything from scratch. And I only realized I was not a seamstress halfway after starting my business, when I started getting my first challenges. Then I went back to the drawing board. I went to learn thread, lace, fabric, everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Question. I used to do some training with small business owners, and one of the things that stopped them from going out was they were scared of taxation. In fact, I went back to, because it was changing at the time, I went back to the revenue division. I asked them, I said, explain it to me, I'll go and explain it to them. Did you find the tax system like a hurdle for you when you started?
No, not really, to be honest, because before I started, I was already working with SEMPA at that time. Okay. I had knowledge about business setting up. But before then, it's true that tax was a bit complicated for small businesses. Yes. Until they introduced the presumptive tax, which makes it easier and straightforward for a small business to be able to fill it up and pay your taxes as you should. So I don't think that should be an issue.
Yeah, but some people who were already scared, even when what you're explaining now is very true, they were already scared and they won't come out. There are a lot of people doing business, like we say in Creole, en bas la table, like they do nice things, but they just don't go out because they're scared of being taxed. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Helga.
Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, Helga Wawul and Poppy's Cafe. You should have a look at it sometimes. It's quite good. One of the things that I'd like to do as well, before we actually move on, Mike's going to be speaking like in 2 minutes literally. But one of the things that I'd like to do is just show you some pictures. because we've got some art students actually here, and I think they really deserve a lot of support because obviously they want to break into the world of work at some point and run their own businesses. And as I was looking through these, I was amazed by the talent. So I'm going to just go through them, have a chat with them, and then later on in the break, we'll show you some more. That wasn't one of the art students actually. But there you are. Have a look at these pictures just for yourself, really. It's just a few pictures. Incredible, aren't they? So a round of applause for these art students. There's going to be quite a few more. So, okay, now our next speaker is a gentleman that I met, another gentleman that I met about 20 years ago, and he wrote a book. The book's The Beer Mat Entrepreneur, and this is his third time to Seychelles. And he's had quite an effect on a lot of people, including somebody in this very room. And she's going to speak as well, like a very short speech later on. So I'm going to introduce the beer mat entrepreneur himself, Mike Southern.
So the way this works for people who haven't been to one of these things before is I will say, good morning, everybody, and you will say, good morning, Mike, back. So let's do that. I'll just get into character first. Good morning, everybody. What a joy it is to see you all here, especially the people from the Seychelles Institute of Art and Design, younger people, because as that great philosopher Whitney Houston said, I believe the children are the future. So I am Mike Southern. This is my third event for Claude. The first one was in 2019. And then there was COVID. Then I was here last year, and now I'm here again. So it's my third time. Now, I've been coming to the Seychelles since the 1980s, so I've seen all the changes. It is a beautiful place, as you well know. And I always post on social media, I'm speaking at this event or that event, but the response I get when I say I'm coming to Seychelles is phenomenal. Mostly jealousy, I have to say, where's my ticket? As I will speak to Claude. But no, it's just such a joy to be here. And as Claude said, I'm an entrepreneur, and that's my main thing. I got into it by accident. I was selling scaffolding in Liverpool, having a really miserable time, because I didn't know what I was doing, and our scaffolding wasn't very good. But two people I'd done a theatre show with in Edinburgh said, oh no, you don't want to be selling scaffolding. You want to be in London, because there's this company that sells training in the Unix operating system. I said, what is the Unix operating system? They said, it doesn't matter, just me and Andy are expert in it. We've written a book. It's going to be big. They're a really good company. They're above a naughty cinema in Soho. So I thought, that sounds fun. So there I was above a naughty cinema in Soho with a book of computer users just going to them saying, hello, my name's Mike. Would you like training in the Unix operating system? And most people said, we have no idea what that is. Suddenly, one person, I was lucky, said, you have training in the Unix operating system and C programming language. I'll buy 10. I thought, oh, I'm good at sales. I wasn't. So I kind of worked out the kind of people that were buying this training in the Unix operating system and C programming language. And we started the business started to build. Then a third guy joined, who was a strategic genius, brain the size of a planet, a guy called Peter Griffiths. He basically said, why are we working for these people? Why don't we start our own company? Because they were a recruitment company. They weren't really interested in training. So we all quit. Then a month later, I go to work in this little basement office that we'd been lent by somebody, and there's two technical people. You know what technical people look like, software engineers. They would look at me like this. Now this face means, please sell something quickly, I've learned. So I said, well, how much would you like me to sell? And they said, didn't you read the business plan? I went, yeah, of course I did, but remind me what it said again. Oh, okay. Right, look, Mike, it's really simple. You have to sell £10,000 worth of training in 6 months, or we go bankrupt. Because we've borrowed a bit of money, we've taken out some loans, sell 10,000. I said, right, sell £10,000. Easy, easy. So fortunately, we've been working for another company for the best part of a year. And I had a customer who about 3 months earlier, he was in Sweden, Philip's defense said, I'll tell you the course you ought to write. Now, that's what you always want to hear when you have an established business. Yeah, I love your stuff, but I'll tell you what you ought to do, because you think, maybe I'll do it, because you already like and trust me. She said, if you did really advanced Unix for very technical people, I'd buy that. We got AT&T who own Unix. They came in, they were rubbish. We knew more about it than them, so we got our money back. So I thought, yeah, we should definitely do advanced Unix, whatever Unix is, in about 3 months. I thought, we don't do it now. So that morning, I called him up and said, hey, Sven, how are you? He said, oh, great, Mike, how are you? I said, well, you know that course you wanted? We're going to do it for you. He said, fantastic. When can I have it? Right, good question. Right. How long to write the course? 6 weeks. So I said 7 weeks. You always add an extra week in case. And he said, brilliant. How much? And I went, £10,000? And he said, great, I'll have 2. So basically, I sold a course that I hadn't written yet, or we hadn't written yet, for money up front to somebody who liked us. Now, on the day of the course, when Dave Lukes, who they loved, said, well, have a look at these slides. Here's some C programming code in a tiny font, if, def, this, and whatever. If you don't understand that, you're on the wrong course. And I thought, they're all going to walk out, but they didn't. So anyway, 3 of us in a basement grew the company by selling services around this Unix and C stuff. And this is what became first the internet and then the World Wide Web. So I was there at the beginning of all of that. So I've got anecdotes about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and even Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all these people. I met them all then. It was fascinating. So anyway, we get to 150 people, and everything's great, and we're selling lots of stuff. We hadn't had any debt. It was actually a bank loan we got, which we repaid, the 30,000 or whatever it was we got. And I was in America. We opened up an office in America. And I'm selling lots of Unix and C training and flying around and meeting people. I get this call, come to England immediately. I say, why? We're selling the company tomorrow. I said, really? How much for? Now, when you're in a business, you may be turning over 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, whatever. It's a bit like monopoly money. It's not real money that you have in your pocket. But suddenly, I was told how much we were selling the company for. They'd already negotiated it. And I divided that number by 5. So there were 5 of us who each had 20%. And that became real money that I was going to get in my pocket in about 2 days. So when I arrive, they say, like, Mike, do you want to read the contract? No, you've read it. Where do I sign? Where do I sign? I want the money. And, of course, the lawyers strung it out for another 12 hours. But literally, I went from being quite poor to quite rich in about 2 days. And I always make this joke, which is, let me just assure you that money does not make you happy. But it certainly makes misery more comfortable. Not that I've ever been miserable. Anyway, so we sell the company. I have to work there for 2 years. Then I have lots and lots and lots of different adventures. But the next interesting thing that happened to me was I was in a university, and I was talking about this Unix and open systems and the internet and everything. And the lectures were going down quite well. So I thought, maybe there's a book in this. So fortunately for me, my best friend from school, who I've known since 1967, is a novelist and a philosopher. He has a degree in philosophy, and he's a novelist. He writes novels set in China and all sorts of places. So I said, come to the lectures. Is there a book in there? So he said, yes, there is. And so he started writing the book, The Beer Mat Entrepreneur. And in those days, it's different now. You had to have a manuscript and go to a publisher with it. So we produced a manuscript. In fact, that title was not our title. The title came from a friend of ours. We were in a pub garden. A guy who used to work in the company I built, who's now very senior in the BBC. He's head of technology. He said, what's the book called? He said, From Acorns to Oaks. He said, what a crap title. Come on, yeah, okay. So he said, well, what happens in the books? We said, well, some friends go down to an English pub and they get a beer mat out and they write on the beer mat. And Chris came up with this, it's genius. Because you'll see on the book it says, turn your good idea into a great business. That's the point of the book. I mean, it could be about beer mats, it could be about pubs, but so all of you, as I can tell, want to turn your good idea into a great business. He said, why didn't you call it the Beer Mat Entrepreneur? And we both went, now that is a £1 million comment, because I've learned at least that from speaking. Chris has got all the royalties. Sometimes your friend will give you the best advice ever, and you suddenly go, you've got it. And I've been trying to give him money ever since. He won't accept it. He's a very nice man, Bill Thompson. So anyway, so we have a manuscript, and so we got an appointment with a publisher, and we go in, and the lady says, oh, Mike Sutherland Chris says, yes, come in and sit down. She has the manuscript there on the table. She goes, I'm going to have to be frank. We knew it was going to be bad news. She did not like the book. She thought it didn't have enough examples. She just criticized the book for about 20 minutes. I'm getting angrier and angrier because I think the book's brilliant. But Chris is like, no, don't hit a lady publisher. That's a bad thing. Word will get around. So we leave pretty angry. They don't understand. Lunchtime the same day, we go to Pearson, and Rachel Stock said, this is the best book I've ever read. Nobody knows anything in business. And the book came out, it went straight to the top of the charts. We sold 100,000 of them. I have no idea why. I wish I could say it's due to me. It's a combination of a book, a brilliant book. This is the best written book on earth about entrepreneurship. I didn't write it, that's why I can say that. It's a novel. It's a story. And people like stories and what happens next. And then I spend all my life doing this. And sometimes people buy the books, and please buy the book. Chris will get royalties from it. He deserves them. He's a genius. Without him, I would not be here. Because that's my first tip for any aspiring entrepreneur. You want to be an entrepreneur. You're young. You're at college. You're thinking of starting a business. Before you even have your idea, because I'll go into how to generate an idea in a minute, you must do this. I wrote it on this yesterday. It's find what's called a foil, somebody with the opposite set of characteristics to you. So as you can tell, I'm an extrovert. I'm optimistic all the time. If there's trouble in the world, I think, well, there's money to be made. I'm very positive. Chris is much more of a realist. I'll say, let's do a book about entrepreneurship. Yes, but it better be good, and so on. So there's a natural bouncing back and forth between somebody who's full of ideas, and this may be you, and lots of good things to do, but then there's the, yeah, we better make sure that, these wedding dresses don't catch fire, or whatever the problem might be. But a good foil to somebody like me is somebody who keeps saying yes, but, but then goes to yes, and. I've solved all the problems, the sensible, because for me, nothing's a problem. We'll work it out, it'll be fine. So find your foil. And I'll come back to this later. On my website, there's a free test which works out what you are. It's a little profiling tool, which you can do. There's no sign up. I don't make money out of it. I don't collect anything. We'll try that out. We can try that later. So let's go to how do you start a business from scratch? And Helga absolutely nailed it. She talked about customer-funded businesses. She went to a customer, persuaded that customer that she could do a wedding dress, and then asked for a deposit. That's how you start a business without borrowing money. You find somebody who likes you. In fact, if you're trying to sell for the first time, you find a friend. So I'd say to Patrick, what's your biggest problem? He might say, I'm so busy, but my garden is really in a terrible mess. I say, well, so if I could fix that, you'd be interested? Yeah, of course, Mike. Then I'll say, do you trust me to come into your garden and do it? And he may say, Mike, I love you, but I don't think so. Well, we could say, yeah, have you got anybody else you've done a garden for? And I'll say, well, I did Claude's garden. Oh, okay, we'll give you a chance. I say, well, I'll charge you 500 rupees, but I need 250 now because I've got to buy some tools. This is when the rubber hits the road, as they say. Because if he says, Mike, I don't want to give you that money, you'll run away with it, he doesn't trust me. Fair enough, sorry, we'll have a drink. Maybe I can talk you around. But if he says, yeah, okay, then I get the rest later. Then he becomes a customer advocate. Because what you want to do if you're starting here in Seychelles, and this is a term I've invented, well, not invented, but I've appropriated fairly recently, is, here are some facts. The Seychelles has 100,000 people. You will not start a billion-dollar company here necessarily. You might do. I work a lot in Estonia, and that's what they do there. And they're 1.2 million, so it's not a huge country. But the thing if you're in Seychelles is to consider yourself, and Helga is a perfect case of this, a local hero. And she described it so well. Once she became the best-known person for doing wedding dresses. Word of mouth is the best marketing on earth. Do not spend fortunes on social media. I mean, later when you're established, everybody was saying, oh gosh, look at that dress. You look fabulous at your wedding, yes. Who did your dress? Well, Helga did. Oh, you haven't got a phone number. If that's not happening, all the social media in the world won't help you. So if you're a local hero, I'm the person in the Seychelles that paints paintings, does this, does knitting, does whatever it is you want to do. And the attributes of a local hero, if I just go to another color to point it up, is you need to be three things. First one is obvious. You need to be, obviously, This is not rocket science, local. I'm here in Seychelles, I'm around the corner. That's a real positive selling point. Then reliable. And nobody's told me my plan is to make bad wedding dresses that fall apart after 10 minutes. Local, reliable. This is the most difficult one. And nice. Because as you'll discover when you become an entrepreneur, not all customers are lovely. And if you're horrible to them, they'll be horrible right back. And you don't start with, don't get into an argument with them. If they start saying, you're really expensive, and they start trying to bully you, walk away is my advice. So be local, reliable, and nice. That's what you do. So now, all these young people who are at college, and where do I get my idea from? Well, there's a saying attributed to pretty well everybody, but certainly Thomas Edison, which is, if you love what you do, you'll never do a day's work in your life. So Helga obviously loves sewing, Time goes by, she's sewing and says, oh gosh, look, it's 6 o'clock. When I do this, I'm having the best time on earth. And I have to keep an eye on the clock, because I'll go on for 2 hours. But this is a tip of the trade. Claude has put the sign there, so I know exactly how long I've got, because in my business, if you overrun, it's a bad thing. So I'm looking at that thinking, I've got another 30 minutes. Time is everything. But if you hate what you do, like I hate doing my tax return, it's my worst day. So I get somebody else to do it. And they actually love doing tax returns. In fact, some of you love doing tax returns. You'd rather be doing tax returns than doing that. I mean, when I talk about foils, another great foil is my dear lady wife, Virginia, or the long-suffering Virginia, as often people refer to her as, because she's married to Mike. It must be hell sometimes. She says, yes, it is, obviously. But she just loves numbers. She would hate to do this. I should do it. She had to, but she's done it in the past. She used to work for a large retailer. But she'd much rather be doing a spreadsheet and measuring things. So there we go. So be local, reliable, and just, if you're nice, you're the nice person. So when the customer is a bit difficult or whatever, you're understanding. But it's a two-way thing. Marcus is very good about this, which is, if you're horrible to people, they'll be horrible back, especially your staff. Customers, it's even worse. So learn to avoid bullies is another top tip. So let's think about, so what business might you want to start? Let's just literally start there, and what do you do about it? I've run out of paper, so I'll go to the other flip chart. So, a few years ago, I was teaching full-time at a university, 11 weeks, 2-hour lectures for 11 weeks, twice. Once was Introduction to Entrepreneurship for undergraduates, and the other one was Marketing Strategy for some of the same undergraduates. And I had a huge crowd. In the last year, I had 500 students, all from all around the world. And, they're all there, and some of them were keen, some of them weren't so keen, but they're all keen to get a degree from our university, which is Bayes Business School. So I just said, well, first, I literally, for the first lecture, I went round the room saying, where are you from, where are you from, where are you from, where are you from? And you heard pretty well every country on earth. So I just made the point, if you make friends with the right people, you'll never have to buy a hotel room ever again. Because you've got a friend from Curacao, or you've got a friend from this, and you've got friends at university, and can I come and stay with you? Yeah, come and stay with me. So you get to travel, because travel broadens the mind. And young people, of course, a bit of advice is, if you can, travel. And there's certainly a scheme here in the Seychelles. So I know somebody whose son did very well at school and wanted to study marine biology in the UK. So he got sponsored by the government to go to UK for 3 years. He's now back, and he's on one of the islands doing marine biology. So the government likes this sort of thing. So if you can get the government to pay for you to go abroad. But, traveling broadens the mind. I was just speaking to a lady earlier, and she does a very proper grown-up job, and she's thinking of doing a side business maybe. But she says, no, next year I plan to backpack around Europe. Fantastic. Broaden her mind. So just hold that thought. So after I'd asked them, where are you from? I asked them all, what do you do when you're not busy studying here at the university? Now, I won't embarrass the people here by saying, what's your hobby or pastime? I'll just tell you what those students told me, what they like to do, and see if you agree with, that might be one of yours. So the first one was football. They either wanted to go to matches, or they wanted to play seven-a-side football, but it was a nightmare trying to find a pitch, so they were beginning to have the ideas for business. Football was number one. Food, was number 2, which is I love to cook, I love to go to restaurants. And these are quite rich kids, to be quite honest, so they would go to nice restaurants. So food was another one. Then there were people who said they liked gaming, you know, playing computer games. And there were other people who liked to explore. Sorry, I should have put it in a different colour. I'm just trying to find one that works. They like exploring London, you know, explore. Go around the parks. What might have been the Seychelles? You might be interested in the environment. Because it's really, really well done here. So have I got a few that people are vaguely interested in? Any other ones people want to throw in there? No, that'll do for now. So I said to them, right, you're into doing this. Why don't you start a society here at the university, which is the society which takes people to see football? I would say go and see Tottenham, that's my team, but it's a pretty miserable day most of the time. They all said Chelsea, actually. There we go. Food, it's either we're doing a cooking session, you know, Creole food for you, come on in, and we'll show you Creole food, or let's go to a restaurant, the best curry restaurant in London we can find, or the best gaming. Well, why don't we all get together and play games? And I'll show you how to do a certain game, and are you into Fortnite, because I'm good at that, or maybe you're good at Grand Theft Auto, whatever they are. And exploring, yeah, let's explore London. The parks are great. I mean, what they actually meant was go clubbing, let's be honest, but they didn't want to tell me that. But no, we want to explore London, you know. But there's everything you could possibly want in London, good and bad, there we go. And then the environment, it's let's be more eco-friendly, more eco-conscious. Let's talk about reusable fashion, let's do about that. I say, form a society, you may get money from the university, then you say to people, oh, you'd like to go to Chelsea? Oh, fantastic. The match is this day, it's £100, it's quite expensive, but I need 50 now as a deposit. Now, if you say, I don't trust you, sorry, okay, fair enough. But if you say, there we go, I do get a good ticket, then what do I get if I pay 500? Well, if you get 500, we pick you up from home, your student accommodation, we give you a meal and so on. You're selling a service. Because if you provide a service for somebody and charge them money and make a profit, because if it's like, I'm giving you a ticket for £100 and it costs me £200, yeah, hang on. Someone like Eleanor will be saying, no, Mike, no, do the maths. So I've sold you a ticket to Chelsea for £100. It only cost me 50, but the other 50 was me organising it and everything. You were happy with it and you're telling all your friends. Now, if that happens to you, you're an entrepreneur. The rest, trust me, is detail. So, you want a wedding dress? Somebody says, oh, talk to Helga. Helga says, yeah, the wedding dress costs this. You do it, she makes a profit, you're happy, you have the best day of your life, you're telling all your friends. There is nothing I can teach Helga about entrepreneurship that she doesn't already know. There's nothing more to it. And she may decide, I'm just going to make a few wedding dresses for people I like or are willing to pay here in Seychelles. Lovely what's called boutique business. It's a small business, but it's profitable. You can do that forever. Or she could have 5 or 10 seamstresses working for her if she really wanted. She's got so much business coming in, then she has to manage other people's sewing who may not be as dedicated as them. So that's how simple entrepreneurship is. It is literally, have you got a problem? And do you trust me? Pretty quickly. Yes, I do. My garden doesn't work, or I can't find this, or whatever. I offer to do it, and I say, pay me that. If they say, that's very expensive, Mike, I say, yes. Oh, sorry, did you want a cheap gardener? Oh, yes, somebody, he's no good, but he's only 10 rupees an hour. Yeah, sorry, I should have asked you that quickly. You want a good one who turns up on time, does a good job. If they make a mistake, they fix it. It is as simple as that. So you look at your bank balance at the end of the day, and you've got money in it. You may not be a finance person. I mean, you're worried about tax. Somebody said that. A lot of the people we teach are worried about tax. Very sensible to be worried about tax, because the last people you want to upset are the tax authorities. They have certain powers, and if you're really bad, they put you in prison. So that's why I have an accountant who deals with His Majesty's Revenue and Customs. So, and they speak to him, and he always gets me money back somehow. I don't know how he does it, but he loves to do accounts. I hate to do accounts. So there we go. So you have an idea, but if you're starting an idea from scratch, you're a young person, so you're at the College of Art and Design, and there'll be so many different things you do. I mean, I'll guess, we saw some lovely pictures. So somebody says, I want a picture in my house, or somebody might say, I want an illustration for a magazine, or whatever it is. You say, well, I can do that, or you can sell them on the street, you can do whatever you want. Your passion will be creating artwork, and then you find, oh, by the way, top tip, always sell to rich people first. And I've noticed quite a lot of rich people come to the Seychelles. You probably noticed the same thing. Your biggest business is tourism. It's quite expensive coming here, so they're already quite well off. But then there's some really very rich people who want a unique piece of art that nobody has. So there are so many opportunities, but it's about whether they trust you. So that's it. So that is entrepreneurship. I wish I could make it more difficult. It is as simple as that. My little timer thing is... Oh, sorry, Claude, can I ask you to refresh the thing? It's gone blank. And I'm worried. Have I run out of time already? So now I'm going to explain what is on the front of the book, other than the Beer Mat Entrepreneur, somebody saying it's marvelous, and turn your good idea into a great business. This is what we call the original beer mat. The original beer mat. So you say, well, let's just go down the pub or coffee shop. I mean, it's a metaphor. You can go to a coffee shop and write on a napkin, same model. You know, because I once spoke in Tehran, in Iran, where I was not the beer mat entrepreneur. I was the coffee shop entrepreneur, unsurprisingly, so because I didn't want to offend anybody. So the original beer mat. So we're going to go down the pub. We're going to kick some ideas around. So here's what you do. There's 3 things you think about literally on the first day. And again, if you do it with somebody else, so I'd go with my wife, who'd say yes, but, to all my stupid ideas or good ideas, or Chris West, who'd say yes, but. So 2 of you in the pub is a good model. One of you could be the person who's going to go out and sell it, the extrovert. And my little test, which I'll show you again later, says you're an extrovert, you're a magnet. Or you could be a maker. Because in the team that does this, Claude, unsurprisingly, is the magnet. I'm Claude Bonte de Beauvalon. You know, there we go. Look at me, it's great, marvelous. And you're like, he's lovely, we love him. There's Eleanor, who does all the work, let's be honest. The sensible one, she says, I'm going to run a conference, and this, and that. Well, we better book the room. Yeah, book the rooms, you know, it'll be fine, and whatever. She looks after the detail. She has a bag full of pens over there. Because I said, where are the pens? She says, I've got them, you know. So that's the dynamic that works with them. So your original beer mat is you're saying this idea. So let's go with a wedding dress idea. Let's reel back to, you know, Helga's thinking, what am I going to do? And I might have said to her, if I'd been there, what do you love doing? I love wedding dresses. You know, she reads the wedding dress magazines. I can make wedding dresses. So what we need is the world's simplest thing, which is what's called an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch. This is a technical term used in entrepreneurship. The model is you get into an elevator, and gosh, who's that just walked in? It's Sir Richard Branson. And you want to pitch Sir Richard Branson your brilliant idea. You've got about 15 seconds. And I'd always ask people, tell me the elevator pitch for your business. And sometimes the elevator gets stuck for about 2 days. They go on and on, too many technical details. So the elevator pitch, and you deploy this if you go to a networking event, like we just had this morning. Somebody's new, and someone comes and say, and what do you do? And you've got to answer them quickly without boring them to death and saying, well, I do this, I do that, and the other on Thursdays, I'm thinking of doing that. So an elevator pitch only has 3 elements. The first is the pain or problem. They might say, I'm getting married soon, but I don't know where to get a really beautiful dress. And that's a pain, it's a problem. And you always reinforce the pain. Yes, isn't it? It's not easy. It's not like you're pretty stupid if you can't find a wedding dress. That's how you get rid of customers. You say, the pain. So you know how difficult it is to get a really stunning wedding dress. And of course, everybody will agree with you. Then, it's really simple. Your premise is, I make wedding dresses. Because again, elevator pitches get stuck with, I do wedding dresses. Sometimes they're green, sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're white, sometimes they're long, sometimes they're short. Too much detail at that stage. That's later, when you get into the detail of exactly what dress you want. Will you have pearls on it? Will you not have pearls on it? I make wedding dresses. I make fantastic wedding dresses. Because then they're thinking, I'm being sold to Oh dear, you make wedding dresses. Do you really? Here is the hardest bit when you're starting out, which is, what is your proof that you make fantastic wedding dresses? Now, she's already established, it's great, I've heard of you. But if it's like, I've never done a wedding dress before, what you need to have is your first customer. And I'll come to first customer in a minute. So you're thinking of doing wedding dresses. So you think, I'll do one for somebody. Now, you always sell first to one of your friends who loves you and trusts you and whatever. We'll give you a bit of slack, knows you've not done wedding dresses for 20 years, but we'll give you a chance. You sell to a friend first, because once you've got a friend, let's say I did a fantastic wedding dress for Patrick here. Unlikely in this case. I think you probably wear a suit. Now, I'll turn it into a suit. I'm going to have a fantastic suit if you ever get married again. It's like, yeah, well, Mike came in and said he's going to do a suit, and I was a bit, but I felt sorry for him, so I gave him an order. But I'll tell you what, it's the best suit I've ever had. Proof is you refer to somebody. A referral, the first sale is always the hardest. After that, it gets easier. It's like, I'm fabulous. I'd say, look, I'm a really great speaker. Speak to Claude Bonte de Beauvalon. I've just done 3 events for him in 3 years, or whatever it is. And he's like, I could call him up and check his mic any good, but I mean, the proof there is like, he's had me 3 times. Normally I get booked once, they never book me again. I don't know why. No, I could guess why. Or it's like, no, we've heard what you said, Mike, but Claude, bless him, he keeps bringing me back to Seychelles because he knows that I'm hopefully going to do a good job. I'll do it tailored to the audience, because I did something for HR yesterday, human resources, larger companies, and I'm hopefully easy to deal with. That's the other thing, which is, it's all very straightforward, booking me, this, that, and the other. You know, there's no nonsense. I always respond to WhatsApp messages quickly. So you deploy your elevator pitch, and you haven't persuaded them to sign a contract. This is the point, not in 15 seconds. All you're doing is winning another 15 minutes, saying, look, okay, I hear the fact you do wedding dresses. I am quite interested still. Let's have a longer meeting where I can get into the detail. We can talk about timing, because that's a big one. You know, when is your wedding? Because it's like, well, it's tomorrow. You know, I can't do one in a day. You know, I can walk out with you and go to a shop and choose one with you or something. But anyway, so you win 15 more minutes, and then the sales process starts. But then once they know what you do, you move from hunting, which is, you've never met me and you don't know I do wedding dresses, to, oh, the wedding dress guy, really good, or wedding dress lady. In her case, then you're farming. It's not a question of let me explain who I am and what I do. It's like, yeah, wedding dresses. Yeah, I've been referred to you and so on. That's how it works. So you always need an elevator pitch, because I teach networking. So let's say you've got to go to a conference. There's all these people, and it's really interesting, and some of them should be our customers, and how do we talk to them, and da-da-da-da. It's like, go and talk to strangers. So I'll tell you how to do that in a minute. But the elevator pitch is where you start. So maybe I'll teach you how to network. Why don't I teach you how to do that? So you go to a place like this, because I have to say, all of you young people have made the first regular step in entrepreneurship. You've come today. You've stepped up. You've not made an excuse and gone. Maybe you were told to come here. It doesn't matter. You're here today, and this could be the beginning of your journey. Or you may decide, from what I heard today, I'll just go and work for the government. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. Fair enough, you know, that's a good decision for some people. But you've made the first steps. You'll be able to take the next step and the next step. But again, concentrate on something you love to do already. You're good at the internet, or you're good at social media, you're good at games, you're good at cooking, you're good at swimming, you're good at whatever it is you do. And say, why don't I offer that to other people? People with money who are what's called money-rich, time-poor. Like, I've got lots of money, but I can't organize somebody to take my children swimming or whatever. That's quite a difficult one. You've got to be careful. But no, I'll take them out. I'll show them around Seychelles. I'll explain to them about how Seychelles does environmental work and the marine biology or whatever it is you want to talk about. So there we go. So let me just teach you how to network, because that'll be a useful thing to do in the last 10 or so minutes. So imagine I've come here for the first time, and Claude said, oh, it's full of people who I'm sure will want to book you in the future. I haven't a clue who you are. And you're all talking to each other, because you're all from Seychelles, and there's here with people, this, that, and the other. So the first thing you've got to do is to like break into a group of people chatting amongst themselves. So the way you do this is you walk up politely, and you wait for a break in the conversation, and you use the magic question, which is, may I join you. And 99 times out of 100, I'll come down and say, oh, you're chatting with us. May I join you? They'll say, yes. If they say, no, excuse me, we're having a private conversation. There's some weird cult, you don't want to insult them anyway. So, may I join you? Yeah, come and join us. They'll say, and what do you do? They might just say, Mike Southern, the Beer Mat Entrepreneur. You know, what do you do? And that's when you have to deploy your elevator pitch. Now, you're starting a conversation here. So, you ask questions in a logical order. Oh, by the way, this comes from a guy called Will Kindish, who you must book to come here. He's great. I mean, you've seen him, haven't you? He's the king of networking. And I always give him a credit because he came up with this and I'm just using it. So I'll network with you. Now, I developed this technique originally for speed dating. Now, I'm not sure if you have speed dating here in the Seychelles, but speed dating, it makes total sense. You're going to go to an event where there's other single people, at least you hope they are, and there's 30 of them, and you can meet them all for 3 minutes only. 3 minutes. And at the end of the 3 minutes, you put a tick in the box if you want to see them again, and you don't if you don't. You make an instant decision. So they were getting about 28% people put a tick in the box, or 28% got a tick in the box. I got that up to about 78%. Because if you ask questions in the right order, people like you. So I'm going to try it now with a real human being. Oh, there's Will Kindish saying, why are you using my stuff? I'm going to try it here, but this is not speed dating. I mean, though you would be a good catch for me, I have to say. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay. So the first question, so what would be on your tag? It would be your name. Show me your business card. So let me just see that. See if I can read it without my glasses. Andrew G., artist and designer. So that's all I know about you. So the first question, maybe we're in London. I'd say it's always the where question. So where are you based? You're based in the Seychelles, I'm based in London, but I visit here a lot because I'm like putting little clues in it. And artist and designer, explain a bit more. What kind of art and design do you do?
I do watercolour paintings.
Watercolour paintings?
Your own gallery.
And
then on the design side, I do interior design. Small hotels, private villas, and then also I have my own guest house.
Right, so I should have given you the microphone. So basically you do paintings. You've got a gallery, and you do interior design for hotels. Small hotels, not the big hotels they're going to go to, whoever, but it's a small hotel, and they can't afford whatever Eden Bleu paid for it. That's a chain. So that's what I know about you. So I'm going to tell you what I do, and kind of hopefully tailor it to kind of what you do, which is, I do a lot of work in the Seychelles where I help people grow their businesses, because I'm sure you want more sales. If you want less sales, I can tell you. Yeah, so you think is the one you'd like me to talk about first? Is it the paintings, is it the gallery, or is it the interior? You need to grow the gallery. Now that's called a buying signal. I need to grow the gallery. In fact, well, I'll get to, so first you always reinforce the need. Isn't that so important? Because if you say, you don't know how to grow a gallery, you must be pretty stupid. That's how you offend them. So need to grow the gallery. So you want to get more people at the gallery. Okay. So then I ask the question, who is your favorite customer who often comes in and has bought stuff from the gallery? Who is that person?
I have very few customers coming in.
Oh, you have very few customers coming in, so we need to get some customers in. So what you want is some very well-known, rich, exciting people to come to your gallery. Patrick. You'll know Patrick. Or Claude, even better idea. We must get Claude into your gallery. And if he comes in and says, I hate all your paintings, fair enough. It's a question of taste, isn't it? But if Claude, who is a big magnet, says, listen, you've got to go down to his gallery. It's fantastic. In fact, I went there and I bought this painting. And aren't I clever for doing so? So I know what your need is. You want to grow a gallery. And there's various ways you do it. My favorite one is always word of mouth. You want all the extrovert people you ever meet to say, guess what, everybody? It's like, oh, Mike's talking. Yeah. Is he going to recommend a car or a hotel or whatever? I say, listen, if you go to Seychelles, do what I do, which is go to his gallery. I sell it on my own personal thing, which is another person may say, I've looked at all the galleries, and there's different ones. Tell me what kind of stuff you want, and I'll tell you which one you go to, and it might be your one, because there was something about your gallery. How do you characterize your gallery? What is it about your gallery? Because I've never been there. I mean, is it landscapes? Is it portraits? What is it?
My paintings are watercolor paintings, mostly of Seychelles views beaches, palm trees, rocks, the kind of thing that tourists like to buy as souvenirs, mementos.
Perfect. Well, you've done 90% of the work for me. So you're looking for a bunch of tourists to arrive and be told, oh, you'll want a souvenir. You can go to the souvenir shops. If you just want to buy a small fridge magnet, you can do that anywhere. But you need to go to this thing and have something so you'll remember Seychelles forever. Because we're having a conversation last night, and Marcus really picked up on this, which was apparently only 15% of people who come to Seychelles come back. And he was, because his mind works, there must be a way of increasing that to 20 to 30 to whatever, and everybody wins. I mean, that was the conversation, wasn't it, Marcus? So, and of course, if somebody comes in and says, that's exactly what I want, I mean, it is unique. I mean, these are not, it's the same painting 100 times. It's a unique painting. And of course, they say, well, I prefer a landscape, I prefer palm trees or whatever. They'll pick the one they want. Then they're back at home boasting. And the question they'll ask is, when are you going back? So maybe we can work something together here, which is, here's what you do. You go to the Seychelles, do what you want to do. You must go to the gallery, because that's the place to get a souvenir picture, which everybody will be really impressed. And that's the answer. And here's the email of the guy. So that's what you do. So if you solve people's problems, you're popular in a networking environment. And with me, if I think, how do we do this? My immediate thought is not, well, I'll come in and tell people how to do it, because I don't live here. I'm thinking, because I'm an extrovert, I'm thinking, who are the influencers who would really send people to your gallery? And off the top of my head, if I did a bit more work, I think Patrick, I think, well, definitely Eleanor, Claude, you know, these are the people that I know who trust me. And I probably say, look, come down with me first, because if they say we don't like them, okay, that's your taste. But if they're saying this is good for everybody, then the business outcome, and Marcus is brilliant on business outcomes, as you heard earlier, which is he'll either measure it or somebody else, which is, do you know what, Marcus? The number of people coming back to the Seychelles has gone from 15%, which we were very disappointed with, to 20%. And bizarrely, it was the going down to the art gallery thing which really caught people's mind. I mean, you have cruise ships here, don't you?
Yes.
Well, you see, there is a channel for you. Because here are cruise ship people, and I'm sure they're not very popular in Seychelles, some of them, because they're just, you know, they're stomping around, they're not spending any money. But what you want is the people who are coming here. I mean, here's a nice story. I put on Facebook yesterday, I'm in the Seychelles, you know, and I got a message on Facebook Messenger from the husband of my German cousin, who I've not seen since 2003. Wow. And they said, are you really in the Seychelles? I said, yes. Well, let's meet for dinner. So they'd already had dinner. They came to the boardwalk where we were. And they are your perfect customer, because they are retired, obviously well off. I don't know how much money they have. They travel all the time, because I said, well, where have you been? And they just reeled off for about 10 minutes. New Zealand, Caribbean, this, that, and the other. They've come to Seychelles for the first time. And, of course, me and Marcus are thinking, you know, we've got to get them to come back. They've been to the Caribbean. And here they said something very interesting, which I'll say to everybody when they say about the Seychelles. She says, it's nicer here in the Seychelles than in the Caribbean. And I said, why is that? Or maybe Marcus said, why is that? She said, when I'm in the Caribbean, the people are poor. And I feel embarrassed. And I'm a bit, you know, nervous because they are poor. In the Seychelles, I hope this is true, nobody seems to be poor. So you come here and you have a clear conscience. I mean, I'm sure there are some poor people, so I apologize if I've stepped over a line here. But you see, you work on the positives, but for you it'll be channels. Because you want to be busy making even better paintings. So you think about, how do I target the cruise ships? Well, start with the influencers in, and do that. Yeah. Right, it's gone off again, Claude. How much longer have I got? 3 minutes, okay. So what I'll do is I'll finish with my gift to you, and it is a genuine gift. Because we talk about finding a foil. And we talk about an extrovert like me, and Claude is a magnet. That's a little word we give to it. Somebody who actually does the painting, you're a maker, you know. I'll say they want a painting of palm trees with a camel on it or something, I don't know, whatever. you deliver, then somebody who's good at finance says, well, how much are you charging? How long did it take you? Let's make sure you're making a decent profit. So magnet, maker, monitor. So this test, it's on my website. You go to mikesouthern.com, it just says, take the test. Now, there's no sign up. I'm not trying to capture your information. Just take the test. Imagine that I'm your best boss ever. And I've said, you've been really good, and as a reward, I've got a big task coming up. You can choose one of 3 jobs that you want to do. Not the one you have to do some days you don't really enjoy it. Pick the one that makes you happy. And I got them all doing it at the networking event. And there were magnets, makers, monitors in the room. Claude came out as a magnet. So you do the test, and it says at the end, congratulations, because there's no bad news. Either you're a magnet, maker, or monitor. If you're a magnet, you love to do these things, you hate to do those things. And the message is, sometimes you have to do the job you hate, because on any particular day you might be selling, you might be delivering, you might be doing your finances, or measuring your time. But you're good at this and you're bad at that. So either learn how to do the jobs you hate for the days you haven't got anybody else, but my top tip is find somebody else who would much prefer to do the jobs that you hate. You're working together as a team. So a magnet, somebody like Claude or me, you came out as maker, didn't you, Patrick? And he's involved in the world of politics. And I said, well, you obviously worked with politicians who are typically magnet. Vote for me, I'm marvelous. But they're a little bit shaky sometimes on the content they're saying. So, well, what do you think about Donald Trump? And they've got to have a good answer. Somebody like you says, well, here's what you say about Trump. Because you want to be careful, because he's the president of the United States and he has powerful friends. So that's my gift. Please go to my website. I got little cards with the Beatles on it, because I often talk about the Beatles. I do lots of work in Estonia, so I got Estonia on there as well. So it's been a joy coming back. We're going to have a Q&A later. We're going to get straight on to the next thing. So what's happening now? Is it the... Oh, it's... We're
going to the break.
Oh, it's going to be a break. So, well, let me hand you back to... And please give him a big round of applause, because he's put this on. Claude Bonte de Beauvalon.
Thank you very much, Mike. There you are, Mike Southern. For the young people that are here, you've heard him here, the beer mat entrepreneur in Seychelles. I really hope that you got some gems from him. He's got his book, The Beer Mat Entrepreneur, and there's got a lot of videos on YouTube, so watch what have a really look at it. I did something for the first time, actually, yesterday. I'm going to do it again to get you people completely out of your comfort zones. If you look at the website, it says networking break. So now we have a networking break. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you all to stand up. Now, don't rush and do it, because I'm going to tell you what to do now, okay? So each of you has got to go out and grab 3 hugs. 3 hugs. And then you've got to have a conversation with people and try and swap contact details with at least one person. Okay? 3 hugs, 1 contact number or whatever. Go for it. You've got 15 minutes. Okay, guys, to your seats. Okay, so for those people that want to run your own business, or even if you don't want to run your own business, but you've already got a business, or you haven't got a business, but you've got a very demanding job, a lot of your success is due to mind control. And I remember listening to one person that he said there were three things, and I think I can probably only remember two of them, but I remember the things that you say to other people was one determination of your success. And then there was, I think the thing is things you say to your customers, and it was like what you say to yourself, that self-talk is so important. And I got very, very curious and met many, many people, but another person who I'd say has been pivotal in my life, who I met completely by accident, and then we became friends again. This was all when I was in London about 20 years ago. And then I discovered that we actually met each other completely en passant when I was about 12 or 13. It was Marcus de Silva, because before he became a hypnotherapist and things like that, he had barber shops, and he cut my hair once when I was about 12 or 13, because we lived in the same part of England. So, amazing character. He's written a book, and he did something yesterday, which was really quite something. So I'm going to pass over to him, and he's going to share some of his insights and wisdom. So Marcus de Silva.
Good afternoon. I've just thought of a story which I haven't told for a long, long time, and it goes like this. Many, many, many years ago, high up on Mount Olympus, according to folklore and history, the gods created man and the woman. And they had a big dilemma. They all sat around the campfire up in the mountains thinking, where can we put man and woman's power so they won't easily find it? Because if they find it too easy, they may use that power to overthrow us, and we wouldn't want that to happen. So they sat around the campfire, the flames were crackling, it was getting dark, and they were taking it in turns. Where can we put man and woman's power where they won't easily find it? One god said, let's put it deep at the bottom of the ocean, they won't be able to get it there. Another god said, let's put it high up on the top of a mountain, they'll never be able to get up there. Another god said, well, if they're going to be ingenious as we are, they're going to find a way to do that. So they sat around and thought, where can we put the power of man and woman so they won't easily be able to connect with it, so they won't be able to overthrow us? So they're sitting there, and all of a sudden, there was a silence, and then a god stood up, and he had an aha moment. Now, before we carry on with that, I just want to talk to you about business and just life in general, because what I'm going to be talking to you about is not just about making money, it's about making your life work. Because we talk to ourselves inside, and it affects how we behave and how we feel. It can't not. Now, these days, a lot of people will talk about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, to me, it's boring, so I'm not going to talk about that. It's if you go to a doctor these days, a doctor will recognize that you've got some internal dialogue going on that's making you feel anxious, stressed, or preventing you from achieving or doing what you want to do. So they send you to a CBT therapist, cognitive behavioral therapist, and they teach you to talk to yourself differently. But it's very cold, doesn't suit anybody, it doesn't suit people in the main. It works very well, but it depends on the therapist and the connection between the therapist and the actual patient, because when you go to a therapist or a coach, it's really important that you connect with the therapist. It's all about relationships, very similar to what we're doing here. Relationships are what makes things work. So I'm going to talk to you in a more interesting way, I hope, about how we talk to ourselves. Can you please put your hand up if you are aware or read about the law of attraction? Great, yeah, I guess so. You know, of course, the book that actually changed everything with the law of attraction was The Secret. But of course, the law of attraction, even in book form, has been around for many, many years. There was a great book I read years ago called The Game of Life. I can't remember who the author was, but it was such an old book. And there's so many books like that, of that ilk. And I think it was Rhonda Bryan that come along and put all these ideas together and come up with The Secret. And she got a collection of other therapists and coaches, and they come together and put this book together, called it The Secret, and it was a massive seller, as you probably know. I'm sure there's a few people here that have either got the book The Secret or read it. Could you show a hand? Sure. But the thing is, what really, really made that book so successful, more than the content inside the book, is the actual title of the book, The Secret. The secret is one of the most powerful words in marketing. I wrote a book years ago. It's out of print, but I called it Weight Loss, The Forgotten Secret. And it really, really done so well. But the book really wasn't that great compared to the one I've more recently wrote, although that was a long time ago. So words are powerful, and how we talk to ourselves is powerful. Who's familiar with NLP here? Can you show a hand? Neuro-linguistic programming. Well, that's another big, huge fad, which is all about communication. And it's also used to kind of so-called program your mind. I mean, I hate that word programming. But you've got NLP, law of attraction, and then you've also got hypnosis. Now, I studied hypnosis probably back in '97. And the guy that taught me was incredible. He was a master communicator. And when you look underneath the law of attraction, there's a lot of hypnotic language going on. So I like to call it the law of hypnotic attraction, because it's basically hypnosis with a bit more of a spiritual packaging, which is great because we are spiritual beings, right? So I want to talk to you about intention statements. Does anybody know what an intention statement is? Has anybody... Okay. Who knows what an affirmation is? Of course. You know, I'm sure all of us at some time have tried affirmations because we want to be successful. We want to be good at this, better at that. The problem with affirmations is how they're put together. The language, the linguistics of affirmations really don't cut it. You can't say to yourself, I am successful, as you look in the mirror. I am powerful, I am strong, I can go to the gym and lift 400 pounds, because your unconscious mind will be going, don't think so. So it's a bit like, you can't lie to your unconscious. So I want to talk to you about, has everybody got notebooks and pens? Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you through the process of how to write an intention statement. And more importantly, make it work for you. So if you can go and get your notepad and pen out, unless you've got a great memory, maybe it's your intention to remember everything I say without writing it down. And that's fine as well. And it's actually my intention today to help you make good intention statements. So, the number one rule when you're making an intention statement is stay in the present tense. Now, what I mean by this is, let me try and give you an example. It's my intention to feel happy today, to be relaxed, to talk to people, to smile, and be calm and positive. Now, that's in the present tense. You talk as though it's happening now. So you must keep in the present tense when you write out your intention statements. So let's think of another one. It's my intention to be successful and make $75,000 or euros a year. I'm not familiar with rupees yet, so let's talk about euros. So you have to be specific. So when you write an intention statement, be specific. You know, your unconscious mind does not understand vagueness. You can't say something like, it's my intention to have lots of money. What does that mean? It's my intention to be really, really successful. Well, successful in what way? So we need to be specific. Present tense, specific. Next one, positive. We need to be positive. So you need to talk about what you want, not what you don't want. So, you know, let's say somebody wants to lose 30 pounds of fat off their body. They want to be slim. You're not going to say it's my intention to get slim because I don't want to be fat. That's not going to work. You've got to reframe that to say it's my intention to be lean and slim and weigh 30 pounds less. So focus on what you want, not what you don't want. So the language has got to kind of match that as well. You need to be congruent with what you're saying. So we've got positive talk. Oh, by the way, we want to avoid words when we're making intention statements like don't. Don't is a negative word. You can't say, I don't want to be poor, because what comes after don't is what you get. Don't think of a black cat walking down a garden path. What do? You probably started thinking of a black cat walking down a garden. Don't think of a pink elephant. So, you know, you can't use negatives. Will's another one, W-I-L-L. I will be successful. Well, that's not in the present tense. So your unconscious mind won't recognize that. You've got to take the word will out because tomorrow never comes, so to speak. So language is important, focusing on the positive. There are words that are very, very powerful that you can use in an intention statement. You can use a word like choose. I choose to be successful because I want to support my family. I choose to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning because I want to achieve more during my day. So choose is a great word because your unconscious mind is not going to argue with that. If you say, I get up in the morning because I want to be successful and because I'm fit and healthy, and your unconscious mind is going to go, I don't think so. Not quite my tempo. So we've got present tense, be positive, move to what you want, not focusing on what you don't want. It's always what you do want. Be specific. Be clear. Your unconscious mind doesn't want vagueness. It wants everything to be really, really clear. Now, the other thing is keep it secret, keep it personal. When you make an intention statement, it's best to keep it to yourself because once you tell people, now there's different thought processes on this. Once you tell someone you've got an intention to do something, they're going to be watching. And if you, for some reason, don't succeed in that time frame, or perhaps your intention statement wasn't stated clearly, they're going to say, see, I told you couldn't do it. You know, it's just all talk, you know, give up all that silly mumbo-jumbo. So it's better to keep it a secret. That's the key word, a secret. Now, there are some models of thought that will say, no, you've got to tell everybody what you're going to do, because then you become accountable, and then you have to do it. You have to succeed. I don't personally agree with that, because that puts a lot of stress and anxiety on you, and we don't need that. You know, it's a very, very private thing. When you make an intention statement, it's personal, it's private, it's for you, nobody else. So, what I would like to do before I move on to the next section, because we're going through a process now called neurohypnotic repatterning. I'm going to actually give you some tools. You're going to be able to leave here today. It's actually my intention to give you the tools to take home and start changing your life in a really powerful, dramatic way. So we've done intention statements almost. I'd like to just give you 1 or 2 minutes. Let's say 1 minute, because when you're under pressure, the brain gets more creative. So 1 minute to produce your own personal intention statement starting Now, okay, that's coming up for a minute now. I can see people have already done their statement, and it hasn't got to be nothing too kind of, it can be a simple statement. This is just about so you understand how it kind of works. So could anybody share what they've written down? Could anyone share their statement with me? Anybody? Could you share an intention statement you've written down?
All right. Anybody?
There you go.
It's my intention to get a degree with a first-class honors.
That's good. That's very good. It's positive, and you're talking in a present tense. It's very specific, so that's a great intention statement. Anybody else would like to share? It can be a simple thing because this is just about learning how to kind of structure.
Thank you. So my intention is focus on my business. I started a new business, so we'll focus on it. I will grab more customers.
Oh, well, okay, fantastic. Yeah, great stuff. Anybody else? Now, it also depends on your philosophy in life, how you think of life. You could actually term something, it's my intention to ask the universe to supply me with what I require in my business. So you can kind of talk in that context if you want, but it's personal. I don't particularly think like that because I understand hypnosis too clearly. So the next thing we're going to do is create an image of the final result. Create an image of what you actually want in your mind. So think of the end goal. So you've got the intention statement, you've just made an intention. Now create an image in your mind of the end result. Just think about the actual end result. So if you've kind of, if you made an intention statement, you're going to kind of have a really great boutique or a restaurant, picture that in your mind. And there's the whole sequence of an intention statement with an end result. Now, we're going to do something else now which is really powerful. This is called the miracle question. Now, this question is actually taken from solution-focused brief therapy. And it's a great way of visualizing where you want to go in your life. So I want everybody to imagine that you go home this evening, you fall into a deep sleep, you wake up in the morning, it's now Saturday morning, you've had a great sleep, and something happened as you slept. It's almost like a miracle happened. And the goal that you wasn't clear about, the thing that you wanted to achieve, has kind of vanished. You're kind of there in your mind. You know exactly where you want to go. You know exactly what you want to do. So just imagine you've woken up, it's Saturday morning, and your goal is crystal clear in your mind. What's the first thing you're going to notice? You don't have to verbalize it. You can privately think about it in your mind. What's the first thing you're going to notice? That a miracle has happened while you slept, and you're crystal clear about where you want to go. and everything's just slot in place, and you know exactly what you've got to do. Just think about what's the first thing you're going to notice. Now imagine it's 1 week in the future today, and it's been a week since this miracle happened while you slept. And your life has changed for the better. You're doing different things. You're doing different behaviors. Things have changed. What have you noticed that's changed in this past week since this supposed miracle happened? You're just pretending this is just an exercise. I'm not suggesting the miracle is going to happen. This is a metaphor for something changing overnight. What would change in a week from now had this miracle occurred in your sleep? What would you be doing differently? Look at yourself in the mirror. How would you look? Perhaps you'd look more confident. Maybe your posture would look different. Perhaps you'll be happier. Picture yourself from the front, from the back, from the sides. What would change? Now take yourself 1 month in the future today. It's been 1 month since that miracle happened. How's your life changed in the past month? What's different? What have you been doing different than you may have done before? What do you notice about the people that you're really close to that's different? What might they notice about you? Now simply picture yourself with the end result 6 months in the future today. Or certainly on your way to the end result, because sometimes goals can take a long time. Sometimes goals can take years, 1, 2, 3 years. But 6 months in the future today, after you've done all this internal work with intention statements and imagining as you slept things have changed, what has actually changed? How do you look different? Just make an image in your mind. Think about how people that you're very close to may look different. What would you notice about these people in your life now, since this miracle's occurred? What would they notice about you that's different? How would you look different knowing this miracle's happened and you are just racing towards your goal? Just think about those things. Now, of course, you either believe in miracles or not. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that miracles occur even. This is an exercise to imagine what's possible if you to have a change of mindset while you slept. And we all go to bed at night and have dreams. And sometimes we do wake up with new insights and new understandings. So this is stuff that happens all the time, maybe on a very micro level. So can anyone share that exercise, the miracle question? Can anyone share how they experienced that, what happened? Anybody like to say a few words about how they found doing that exercise?
Yeah, for me it was encouraging because I feel like I went through a similar process to that about a year ago, and rethinking about it and going through it in the way that you sort of guided us through reminded me what it was that I'm fighting for in a way, but what it was that I'm working towards. Because I feel personally that once I've started that journey, it can then be difficult to continue to have that motivation. Because one of the first things that popped in my mind, the miracle for me was waking up to tomorrow morning or Monday morning and going, right, I've got all of the motivation, all of the energy back to be able to continue on that path and keep working towards those goals. And sometimes like you say, when goals can take a few years, you can sometimes lose the energy, the motivation can dwindle a little bit. So, yeah, that's the process that I went through, really trying to get back that motivation.
Fantastic. So you think that could be a helpful tool for you in the future?
Yeah, sure.
Great, excellent. Thank you very much. Now, it's something I've used with clients over the years many times, and it's helpful for all types of things. So, yeah, thank you for that feedback. Appreciate that. Anybody else want to share any words?
All right. So if my dream was wake up and I've achieved everything, and what would be different? Well, I'll be skating every day.
You'll be what, sorry?
Skateboarding every day. Because then I won't have to worry about running my business, and it will be on, how can I say, automation, you know, understand?
You'll be more relaxed, is that what you're saying?
Exactly. I'll be able to do what I love, right? Every day without thinking about what's happening there. I know everything is under control and things are
fantastic.
Are rolling out, you know?
Well, that's worth its weight in gold, isn't it? Because who wants to build their business in a state of high anxiety and stress? So these things are very important.
Yeah, so when I wake up in the morning, I know if I want to go there, just without having to really think about the business and all the stress away, I know. My head is clear, you know.
And when you say that, if you visualize or picture yourself or imagine yourself, you maybe look a little bit more relaxed. Not so like that, right?
Yeah, sure. All right.
Thank you very much. Okay, anybody else before we move on? That's great, thank you. Now, the thing is, it's all very well learning all these strategies and techniques, whatever they are, whether it's stuff that Marcus or Mike has suggested, or even what I suggest. We all need focus. We need a foundation of focus and presence so we can actually execute this stuff, you know. I come up with a term a few days ago called entrepreneurial presence. We have to be present because being present is very, very powerful. When we actually become present, people tend to, I've noticed this, you know, with different people I've worked with, people tend to trust people that are present in the moment with them. You know, a lot of people have probably heard about mindfulness here. Mindfulness is a brilliant thing. It's 2,500 years old, and it's a simple technique of being in the present moment. You know, the Zen Buddhists will say, when you walk, just walk. When you eat, just eat. When you read, just read. The worst thing you can do, I think, is when it comes to communicating with people, this could be staff, or it could actually be friends or family. You've got the phone in one hand. Yeah. Talking like, yeah. Sorry? That's just not being present, and that really, well, it infuriates me, actually, you know. It's quite funny because I see a friend of mine the other day, and he's a sort of guy, you know, he's a very down-to-earth kind of guy, you know. And he said to me, he met up with a friend recently, and he was sitting in a pub having a drink, and his mate was sitting opposite him, constantly playing around with his phone. He said, look, excuse me, I've travelled like 15 miles to meet up. We haven't seen each other for a couple of years. Can you put your phone down? Just, yeah, okay, sorry. Kept on. So after 3 or 4 times of actually saying this, he spilt his beer on his phone, you know, on purpose, you know, accidentally. So he says, well, that's perhaps going a bit too far, but I can understand his thinking. So presence is such an important thing. Stay in the moment, and it's easier said than done because we live in a crazy, crazy world. So I'm going to teach you the best focusing technique that I know of. And if you just take nothing else but this technique away with you and practice it every day, a couple of times a day for 15 to 20 minutes, it will change your life. It will make you feel calmer. Not initially. If you were to do this technique I'm going to show you twice a day for 20 minutes for a month, 4 or 5 weeks, you would definitely feel calmer, and you'll definitely be able to stay present much more than you normally would be able to. So I'd like to invite everybody to close their eyes, purely because it's just easier to do it with your eyes closed. Everyone close your eyes. And I just simply I'd like to ask you to gently bring your awareness to your breathing. Just notice yourself noticing the natural lifting and falling of your breath. Focus on the point where each breath begins, the point of where each breath ends and starts again. You also have a middle to each breath, so you're focusing on when the breath starts, the middle part of the breath, and then where the breath stops and starts again. Just simply be aware. This is not yoga. You're not trying to change or manipulate your breathing in any way. You're just watching. You're just observing your breath. And now thoughts will come into your mind as you do this. You'll start getting thoughts such as what you've got to do later. Oh, did I pay that bill? Oh, I've got to meet my friend tonight. All this sort of stuff. But this is just crazy thinking which we've all got in our minds. Just be aware that you're thinking. Let the thoughts go and gently come back to your breathing without judgment, without blame. Some people say when they do this that they start thinking of all sorts of things. Well, it's not that that's what happens. It's what's going on all the time naturally. We're constantly doing this. When you become aware of your breathing, you just become aware of how crazy the mind is and how tricky the mind is. So stay with that breath, focusing on when the point of where the breath begins, the point where the breath ends, and the bit in the middle. Just stay with it. Anything that comes up, any memories or thoughts, just notice the thinking, let it go. That's a key word, let it go, and gently come back to your breathing. And I'm going to leave you with that without talking just for a minute or two, because this is a very private, peaceful time where you can really get to know the breath. Something that perhaps most of you or many of you have not really done before. So just simply become aware of your breathing and just let thoughts go when they intrude and gently come back to the breath again. That's right. Without judgment, without blame, simply noticing yourself, noticing the natural rise and fall of your breath. That's right. Just stay with that. You can do this with your eyes open or closed. It's just an awareness of your breathing. You're not trying to manipulate nothing. You're simply observing the breath. It's just amazing to be able to tune into the breathing. Such a wonderful gift. To be present with a friend like the breath. And in your own time, just open your eyes and just come back to normal wakeful awareness. Okay, if you found that calming, just put your hand up. Yeah, that's a big response. It's the most powerful thing I've learned, or certainly one of them. The most useful, versatile tool as well, because you can take it anywhere. You can be on a train, on a bus, and if you're feeling somewhat anxious or a little bit uptight, you can simply tune into your breathing. And very quickly, you don't have to close your eyes, you can do this with your eyes open, so nobody knows you're actually doing this. And you can just actually use this as a tool to carry you through your life, through the days, through stressful times, whatever. You can even do it when you're with your loved ones. So that's called mindfulness of breathing. Now, if you were to practice that for 20 minutes twice a day, you would become calmer, you'd sleep better, and with a little bit of extra effort, you could be quite mindful of stuff in your life. You could be mindful. You can walk along and just focus on your breathing, or you can focus on your feet making contact with the floor. You can be mindful of washing up. You can be mindful of taking a shower. All these things are great for reducing stress and anxiety, which, let's be honest, if you're running a business, we need to be reasonably relaxed because we're not going to be very productive. We need a clear head. So, okay, let's try something now. I'd like everybody to stand up, please. And I'd like you to put your left arm out like that with your palm facing up. And your right arm like that. That's perfect. Yep, excellent. Right out in front of you. And if you can just straighten, lock your elbows slightly. Not too tight, just so your arms are straight. Brilliant. Excellent. Now, I want you to close your eyes. And I'd like you to imagine in your left hand, where the palm is facing upwards, I am putting a great big pile of heavy books in that hand. Imagine there's like 5 or 6 giant encyclopedias going into that left hand. It's heavy. And the more you try to keep that hand upwards, the more you notice that hand wants to float downward. Picture the books, old-fashioned hardback books, leather-bound. It's getting heavier and heavier. Now, in your right hand, I want you to imagine I'm tying a piece of string around your right wrist. And attached to that string is a red gas helium-filled balloon. And it's light and it wants to lift up. And it's lifting your right hand and arm up. Just picture the red balloon full of helium and it's pulling up your right hand. And at the same time, those books are becoming so heavy. And I'm going to reach over and put another big, heavy book into that hand. You've got another book now, and it's becoming even heavier and heavier. And the more you try to keep that hand up, the more heavy it feels. Really picture that in your mind. Imagine it, that book becoming heavier and heavier. And that balloon's just so light, it's just lifting and rising. Lifting and rising. And stop, don't move. Open your eyes and look at your hands, the position of your hands. Keep your hands there and just look at where your hands are. And you're going to notice, if you look around the room, you've got some people's hands have really changed, that they're in completely different positions. Other people are in the same spot. It doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong kind of result here. But the power of suggestion, so basically you can relax now, put your arms down. So that, and take a seat, please. So that's the power of suggestion. So when we actually really, truly concentrate and we put effort into what we're doing, that concentration will change a shift. You can get this kind of thing going on. You might get this, that. It's different for everyone. We're all different, of course. Sometimes it's like this. But some people are more suggestible than others. And we're talking about self-suggestion here, self-hypnosis. It's nothing I'm doing. I'm giving an instruction. I'm inviting you to experiment with your own mind. And it's a combination of how much you concentrate, how suggestible you are to suggestion, and how interested in the exercise you are. So it can be anything from, I've had people going like this, like that before. It's quite amazing. It's quite an amazing, the mind is powerful. And we can go on and on and on. There's so many different, actually stand up and we do one more. Please. Okay, I'm going to put the mic down for a moment. Now, can anybody give me any feedback on what happened there? Because, I mean, I can see, but I can't obviously get inside your mind. Does anyone want to share what they thought of those exercises, how they got on with them? Just solid. What, and the more you tried, the more difficult it sort of become? Okay. And how did you get on with the other exercise with the balloon and books? Yes, that's right. It was quite a movement for you, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes, sorry.
Yes. What did you find the most powerful for you personally out of those two exercises?
The second one.
Second one, yeah. It was almost like you just couldn't pull your hands apart.
Yeah.
Sure. So that's kind of blatantly real, isn't it? If you can't separate your hands.
No. Yeah,
thank you very much. And does that tell you anything personally about how the mind could work for or against you?
Yeah, I mean, the first exercise you did, not the hands, the exercises thing, I've done before, and it does calm me, especially when I'm overstressed. I find it very helpful to be able to meditate and focus on nothing but breathing.
It's a beautiful exercise, isn't it?
Yes. I've done it before.
Yeah, and a lot of people have tried that now because mindfulness has been big, but that is such a powerful technique, and it's 2,500 years old, so it's tried and tested, right?
But what I do find is that you've got to get into the habit of doing it. You can't just do it. I mean, yes, you use it when you're in a crisis, but it's having the habit of waking up in the morning and doing it and doing it in the evening.
Definitely.
And if my mind's like if I wake up in the night and my mind's over racing, which how people do, I find that's a very good technique to stop your mind racing.
Sure.
And then you're able to go back to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a brilliant meditation. It's a meditation I've been doing for many years, and I do that for 45 minutes to an hour every morning.
Yeah.
And when you do it for that length of time, after a period of time, it feels like your body's actually just floating. You don't feel your body. Have you experienced that?
Yeah. Sometimes, yes.
Sure. Yeah, it's going to be different every time, of course. Thank you very much for that feedback. I appreciate it. Anybody else like to share a couple of words about those two exercises or any exercise we've done? Oh, Claude, get you working.
No, I was just going to say and reinforce the breathwork thing. I mean, I'm a freediving instructor and breathwork coach. So the power that I found in mindfulness and breathwork. I mean, let's put it this way: I was a lifeguard and a swimming instructor for about 16 years. Came to Seychelles 7 years ago. I was terrified of the ocean. I could swim really well, but then not being able to see the floor, it was scary, sharks, all the rest of it. That's what used to really terrify me. Then learning the techniques through freediving and through breath work, I'm now a fish in the water. That's literally because I've changed the mindset about how I feel about certain levels of stress. And now I can hold my breath and dive to 40 meters and think, this is absolutely fine, there's no problem with this, because I'm able to calm myself down. And that transferable skill into the rest of life has been, completely life-changing. So
it sounds like you've kind of combined mindfulness or breathing with perhaps some yogic type breathing stuff, have you? Brilliant. It's a great combination, actually, yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you. So we've covered the basics. In the short time we've got, we've covered the basics of self-communication. Intention statements can be powerful if you use them regular. They've got to be used regular, and you've got to kind of follow those principles of present tense, being specific, being positive, maybe being private if you choose to do that. Basically all those elements are probably the main elements to make it work. And avoiding negative words like don't, will, not, and stuff like that. Positive words you can use are because. This has just popped into my mind. There was a woman called Ellen Langer, a social psychologist, that done an experiment years ago. This experiment's in a really famous book by Robert Cialdini called Influence, Power and Persuasion. And they done this experiment where there was a queue of people in the supermarket buying groceries. And the first experiment was they sent somebody up into right to the front of the queue and said, can I pay for my groceries because I'm in a big rush? And of course, most of the time they'd say, get to the back of the queue, you know. No way, you know, we've been standing here waiting for quite a while. And then what Helen Lang had done was she asked the person to do the same experiment, go to the front of the queue and say, can I go in front of you because my car is on a yellow line outside, or because I'm in a rush. The point is, the word because was very influential and it changed everything. So you could add the word because in your intention statements, you know. I want to go to the, it's my intention to go to the gym every morning for an hour and a half because I want to be slim, lean, happy and healthy. So choice and because are two key words that can actually make your intention statements more powerful. So yeah, okay, we'll just briefly move on to general communication. There's a phenomenon that's been going around for years called NLP. I think a few of you are familiar with that. Can you just let me know who's familiar with NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming? Anybody here? Okay. Yeah, well that's good, that's helpful. This is a system of kind of influence, and there is hypnosis in it. But it can be, in the wrong hands, it can actually be a little bit kind of, it can be a little bit over-influential. It can be a bit manipulative if it's not used properly. So the best thing just to finish this off, the best tips I can give you for communicating with other people is based on a model by Carl Rogers, the great humanistic psychologist. He took over and changed the face of psychotherapy because Freud was a kind of original guy, you know, as we like to call him, sick man Freud, because of some of his bizarre kind of ideas, you know. So after Freud come Carl Rogers, and he changed the face of just kind of being natural with people, and he come up with something called the 3 core conditions, and it's simple. Non-judgmental, UPR, unconditional positive regard for people. Being congruency, you know, matching your words with what you do and everything else. Be congruent in your behavior. And empathy. Now, empathy is something that takes a little while to develop. But once you can become emphatic, it's very, very, very powerful. So there's a couple of techniques that I'll just skim over here. This comes from something called person-centered communication. It's actually called person-centered therapy, but we're not talking about therapy here. So let's call it person-centered communication. And all it simply means is this: listen. The 2 techniques are active listening. Listen more to what the person's saying. Become present. So it gets back to presence again. Listen, be present, and that creates trust naturally, and that person is more likely to kind of do business with you or become a friend or whatever. So be present, active listening. The other thing is paraphrasing. When somebody has been talking for 5 minutes about something that's going on in their lives, and you know, if you're selling a product or a service, what's going on in their life could be linked to kind of the product or service you're actually selling. So we need to be a little bit compassionate here. So if someone talks to you for 5 minutes about the way they've been feeling, you can simply paraphrase back to them. So if somebody's sitting there talking, they say something like, they've just been talking about how they've been through such a bad time in the past 5 years. They lost their business, they lost their partner, you know, they had to move out their house or something because the flat was sold and they was renting it. And how they're coming through it, and they're starting to realise that there's other opportunities in life. You can paraphrase by simply saying something like, so it sounds to me like you've been through a tough time, but you've used your own natural inner resources to kind of make a big comeback and change your life again. So look up Carl Rogers. There's a great book called On Becoming a Person, and it talks about paraphrasing, active listening, but the base of it really is listening first and foremost, because Rogers talks about something called the actualizing self, and what he means by that is whether we actually use techniques or not, we change naturally. See, according to Rogers, there is no fixed self. Our self is constantly changing. There's no fixed self because we're changing from day to day. Certainly we change from years to years. So there's no fixed self because our beliefs can change, our thoughts can change, our behavior can change. So we don't stay the same person. And this is an incredible way of looking at it. The self is self-actualizing naturally. And in my work as a psychotherapist, you know, a lot of it is just listening, it really is, and actually cutting in with the right process questions at the right time. Anybody got any questions at all about anything that we spoke about today? I must have been pretty clear about stuff. So anyway, the gods are sitting up in the mountains, and they've exhausted all these ideas, where to put man and woman's power, so they could never find it, because they wouldn't want it used against them. Where are you going to put their power? All of a sudden, one god stands up and says, I've got it. And they stand back, look at each other, you know, what's coming, you know. And this god smiled and said, put it right inside themselves. They'll never think to look there. Thanks ever so much. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Marcus. Absolutely brilliant. There's some strategies that you can use for being present. I think many times, especially working in a place like Seychelles, we're not very present. We're not always present. Now, we've just got a couple of bits and bobs to get through. So, well, I'm going to show you another preview for Movers and Shakers, and this is quite a story because our own seminar features in the story, so it's quite good, and so does Eden Blue. So this is to be broadcasted. So this is the preview for it.
I'm going to interview a very inspiring young lady who embodies the art and the saying that passion has no bounds.
But the piece that I really connected with was the what you wear part. And little people know this, but what you wear has a way of making you feel a certain type of way. And lingerie is an intimate wear, something that is designed to make women feel more feminine and glamorous with themselves. Entrepreneurs don't get to where they are by doing everything by themselves. And that was just like kick in the right direction.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Alexandria. Right, okay, Alexandra, would you like to take a seat there? Mike as well, would you like to come and take a seat? So, once upon a time, there was a seminar in the morning. It was this time last year on a Friday, and we had the exec boardroom in the afternoon, which was quite interesting. So, Mike did a talk, and Alexandra heard the talk. So, over to you, Alexandra.
Okay, so exactly a year ago, I started a business called Floria Michel's. So Floria Michel's was born from a deep desire to share my idea to the world. It's the belief that fashion is not just fabric, it is identity, it is intent, memory, and becoming. This journey began with a desire to help empower and revitalize creative souls through intimate elegance. I wanted to build something that will help with self-expression, something honest, bold, and beautifully personal. Most women do that by offering a variety of makeup selection, and most women become nail artists and hairdressers. At Floria Michel's, we provide skincare products, comfortable sleepwear, and lingerie that is not only flattering, but meaningful. This brand is my love letter to individuality, to women who dare to be bold and who strive to become better. It started after I met Mr. Mike Southern. We had a conversation. I had the idea in mind, but I was scared of starting. And after speaking to him, that's when things sort of kicked off.
Oh, I have to say, when I came here, I didn't think, well, I'm going to inspire lots of people to do lingerie. That was a welcome bonus. But isn't this just such a fabulous story? And isn't her messaging absolutely perfect? Because one of the most important things, as has been said many times, is authenticity. I wouldn't get away with designing lingerie, so I don't. Whereas clearly it's your passion and your heart is good and you're really trying to pass that on to other people so that they become their better selves. Because everybody needs guidance. So well done. I mean, I wish I could teach you something more, but I think you're so far ahead. It's great. Just keep being yourself, keep doing what you do. And of course, most of your business will come from word of mouth, as I was speaking about earlier. You know, there'll be the first lady perhaps was a bit skeptical. Really, you got better makeup, you got this, got the other. You said, come on, give me a chance, give me a chance. But it has worked. And the other thing, which she probably, I'm not sure if I should mention this, is she has a day job. We won't even say what that is, but good for her. This is very common now, where she's doing a job during the day and she works very hard and they're very happy with her and they don't get the feeling she's spending all of her time thinking about lingerie. Probably during the day, you are that person. You go home, so you're working quite possibly 24 hours a day, maybe a bit more sleep might be a good idea, but no, just carry on what you're doing. I mean, who doesn't want to be more glamorous, more admired, and more loved? It's a marvelous thing. So give her a huge round of applause right now. This is the best part of my job. I mean, I stand up and talk for England and tell stories, but when somebody comes to me and says, I heard what you said, I've done what you said, and it was long hours and hard work, but it wasn't, you didn't understand what you were doing. It's just, I must do makeup, I must do laundry, and it's the personal service side, which is brilliant. Now, do you just work with Seychelles women, or, yeah, there we go. Well, what about a few expats? Don't you think they ought to be interested in this? He said pointedly that, because yesterday we had people from Ukraine and Russia originally and UK, so I think they should be. Well, you will consider them. Yes, that's the right answer. Because you may say, look, I'm not sure I can help you, but I think you could help anybody. I mean, Claude, you know, mate, you need some work. No, I'm kidding. No. He's perfect as he is. So, no, well done you. So, I mean, do you have any questions now? Or, I mean, I'm happy to sit and chat with you as long as you like. So, any questions for me? Oh, sorry, here we go. Any questions? What would you like to ask me? If I don't know the answer, I'll make something up, convincing, hopefully.
Okay, so one thing you said last year that really got me going is that for me, it was, I've always wanted to do everything by myself.
Yes.
And you said that that's not how things work, that you need to delegate and you need to find the right people to put in the right positions. And I've done that, but they haven't stayed long. So that's the issue.
Okay, that's a strange thing. So remind me again, you did the profile test this morning. What did you come out as?
Maker.
Okay, so she's a maker. So she's really interested in doing the, actually making the stuff, finding the makeup, maybe putting the makeup together, whatever. That's the maker job, the delivery side of things. You want magnets to be saying, oh, she's the best thing ever. And you want finance people. Now, a finance person you can just hire. It's like, come and do my accounts, because it's not you could probably do it, but why aren't you doing more lingerie or thinking about new makeup? So why do you think these people left? Was it wasn't right for them, or they come for a bit, but they're not that interested, not that committed? What happened?
I think interest was lacking.
Okay.
Yeah, the first person, I tried to convince her she's also in fashion, but I think this wasn't in her interest.
Okay. Now, and that is fair. That's another maker who's like, I love fashion, but I do something different. Like, could have been the lady doing the wedding dresses. But think about trust. We've been talking about trust a lot. And most people tell a good story. I mean, I'd say, I'm good at sales. And somebody else will say, I'm good at designing lingerie. And somebody else will say, I'm good at finance. You give them a little task. The phrase I use is try them and improve them. Well, if you're a magnet type person, and you can tell because you tell them a story, they've got a better story about themselves. You say, well, why don't you, do you like my stuff? Yes, I do. Why don't you tell all your friends? Maybe we'll have an evening where you can bring them in and you can be queen for the night. And I'll just say, oh yes, what would you like to do? Because in England we had, Claude may know about this, there was, she's not a real lady, Anne Summers. Okay, it was a bunch of shops where unpleasant men went to, and the lady went to the bosses saying, look, no woman is ever going, this is a long time ago, no woman would ever go into the store. We must do parties at home. And so they put those together, and you could do exactly the same thing, which is nice and private, nice and discreet. Come to my house, and we'll talk about lingerie, we'll talk about makeup, we'll talk about whatever. They talked about other kinds of things. But the lady who did that, she passed away now, sadly, Jacqueline Gold. She had a great story, which is she went to the bosses to say, I've got this idea for doing parties. And one of these men said, that'll never work. She said, why? She said, because women don't enjoy sex. And I think he was wrong about that. That would be my idea, which is say to somebody, this is the best thing for a magnet. You're going to tell all your friends, come on down, we're having a little evening, a little soiree. We talk about lingerie, we talk about makeup. Maybe they want other things, or I don't know. Just see what they want. But it's a social event because magnets like that sort of thing. Yeah. And you're just there being brilliant and beautiful as you are. And here's an example, there's an example. What do you think of this makeup? I mean, you do makeup demonstrations. It's like a little show. I mean, if you want to know about shows, this man knows about it, and he's exactly the demographic you're looking for. So maybe you could organise some lingerie parties for her. I mean, just don't say no now. Just make your mind afterwards. Now, you make it a social thing, but it's tough finding people. If it was easy, we'd all do it, just hire people, whatever. So just keep on, but you've got to really trust them and like them first. You have to have the same mentality, even if they have the different profile. Yeah. Just think about the most popular, I'm guessing it's women, in your network and say, why didn't you help me organise a little party one evening where people can come in and learn about it? And it's a great evening out, so that would be my suggestion. But finance people are relatively easy. You just find an accountant you trust. But it's your foil is really magnets. So you give off a lot of magnet energy because you're beautifully dressed and you speak very convincingly about it. So you can do it, but you'd rather be designing better lingerie and better makeup at this moment right now. I'm making you feel uncomfortable, so I apologize. But just keep on with it. Well, you can work on your own until you find the right person. Yeah. But it's a bit like falling in love. You don't know when it happens. If you try and force it, it'll never happen. So there we go. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Any other questions? What would you like to ask?
That's it for me.
I will come to your next party, but I will bring my wife if that's okay. Because now I've got a friend in London who's quite possibly one of the smartest women I know. And I always used to get guests from my students. So, in fact, it was at a university. They said, you'll love our poster girl, Louise. When you see her, you'll understand. She's one of our brightest students, whatever. And I said, what is it about her that I might find interesting? She said, she's a supermodel. She was literally 7 foot tall, nearly 6 foot tall, blonde hair, Latvian, stunning. And it was a piece of cabaret almost. I said to my friends, my students, I said, I'm going to bring an entrepreneur in. They expected somebody looking like me or Claude. This woman sashayed in like a fashion model, and everybody's jaws dropped. Then they assumed, well, she's a supermodel, she's probably not that bright. She started talking without notes, and she was very, very convincing. So when she said, I've opened up the London Model Academy, you must come down, I thought, I must come down. I took my dear lady wife, and they got on famously, I'm pleased to say. So, no, find the most popular people you know and say, are you interested in lingerie? No, I'm not. Oh, never mind. Yes, I am. Or, would you like to try some? Would you like to try this makeup? I got some. See, makeup is such an interesting, I don't understand it at all, but there's a science to it, obviously, but there's also a little bit of inspiration. You do something thinking, maybe I'll try blue, I'll just pick a random number. It just works. Or they feel comfortable in it. Or you want to stand out, or you want to be in the background. There's so much subtlety to it. So, no, just keep doing what you're doing. And I do promise to turn up. How I explain this to my wife, I'll work on this. I'll see her tomorrow. I'm flying home tonight. No, she's lovely.
That's great. That's awesome. Okay, there you are. So, right, Alexandra, I'm going to ask you a question. It's like the L question. What was the worst the worst day to sleep in. It didn't happen by accident, did it? No. Being here. So, when did you have when did you have a lucky break? I mean, was it the seminar? Was it before the seminar? It must have been a few things that happened to have brought you to this point.
Okay, so I wanted to do something way before the seminar, but like I said, I was just very afraid to do it because it's lingerie, and to advertise that in Seychelles is not very common the way I do it anyways. So I met Mike, but then I had to take this step on my own. I started my Instagram page, my Facebook page, opened my WhatsApp business. I bought a website domain. Then I had to post something. And I didn't have any lingerie at the time, so I had to think of something creative to get people on the platform. I posted with my first advertisement. I didn't post my face. Nobody would know who this belongs to. Then I saved up and got my first batch of lingerie. It was like 105. It wasn't much. After the first month of posting, still no face, nobody knew who it belonged to. I got one customer, and I wasn't able to give her what she wanted because I didn't have it in stock. But she waited, and when I got it to her, then she was very patient, very kind. I tried my best to give reliable customer service, and after that one customer, she shared what she had bought from me and the service. I got a few more customers. Then I started posting glimpses of my face and just starting to share what the business is about. Like, I didn't want to sell people fabrics. I wanted to sell them this experience. And that's what most of my customers came from word of mouth, and most of my sales have been return customers.
Wow. So you had it in you, but what I'm actually hearing from that is maybe if you didn't come to the seminar, you would have done it, but it would have just taken you quite a bit longer to get to that point.
Probably, yes.
So how important would you say seminars are?
He said knowingly, yeah.
This one in particular, very important. So next year, there's another one.
There is, but we're trying to do it every year. So there you are.
That is just
Thank you.
That is the textbook way of doing it. You start small. You find a friend who's very forgiving in a way, sort of, sorry, it's going to be another day or two, whatever. They stick with you because they like you. They become your big advocate. And then word of mouth takes off. Then once you get into the social media side, Instagram or any other thing, nobody knows what makes something go viral. It's a mystery. You can't do it, otherwise I'd have done it for myself with beer mats or something. So you just try things, but you measure, and of course Meg's so good at measuring. So I did that one, 10 people looked at it. That did the one, 10,000 did. You're onto something, then you follow that dream. Yes. So, but you being the lingerie queen, if that's the right way of putting it, of Seychelles, is such a brilliant thing. Is there anybody else doing what you're doing? Or was it just people shipping in from abroad? Stuff.
There are other lingerie stores.
Yeah.
But not quite. They don't advertise the way I do, I guess.
There we go. So, and that is it in a nutshell. You advertise the way you do, and it works. Just do more of that. Not forget that, do something else. No, it's a fantastic story. I will dine on this for ages. There's this lady in the Seychelles. You can hear me. You always hear me doing it. Oh, yes, absolutely marvelous. And you'll have some film clips that we can show. And yeah, no, and the program's great. It's just
last question: did you get a bank loan before you started? And if not, why not?
Like I said, I liked doing everything by myself, and even borrowing money was not something I wanted to do. So what I did instead was work and save as much as I could. I have a 9-to-5. I could take leave from my 9-to-5 and go do some work in another place for a week to get that money for a week and save up. So everything is from savings.
Where do you think a lot of young entrepreneurs go wrong when they say they want to start a business in Seychelles and they can't start because they don't have the opportunity, because they don't come from a rich family, because they don't have the right surname and whatever? What would you say to that?
I don't come from a rich family. I don't have a family that would sponsor me. But what I did was believe in myself and try to find solutions to all of my problems. So what I would say to them is work. If this is an issue, if money is an issue, then find a way to get that money. There is always a way, and Seychelles is so easy for you to get money from casual work, 9-to-5s. It's so easy if you just look for it. Not just sit there and say, oh, I don't come from a rich family. Oh, I don't have money. Oh, I earn a minimum salary. You need to do something about it.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Alexandria. Amazing. Right, now we're almost done. Marcus Cauchi, can you come to the stage, please? Marcus De Silva as well, and Mike. The other mic. Oh, you've got the other mic. Mike's got the mic. Eleanor, where are you? Do you want to take this and go around? We're going to just finish off because I know some people probably have some questions, and it's not every day that we have all these experts in the room. So the first question, who's got a question for one of the... I mean, you can ask me questions if you like as well, but anybody's got any questions for anybody? Put your hands up. Okay, go on.
All right, question for Mr. Mike, right? All right, so what I want to ask is, like, we know Seychelles is a small country, right? And most people around the world, if you mention them Seychelles, they don't know who we are, right? Mm-hmm. And how do you break this barrier, like, to start something here and then that you can move beyond Seychelles, you know? Mm-hmm. Because we are a small market and Seychelles has the opportunity and to go beyond that. Even though you talk about to finding the goal right here, but sometimes when the market is limited and to try and cross that border, what would your advice be?
Okay, I'll give you a health warning first. I am completely optimistic about everything. So in my world, whatever something is, the chairs are white. What a great idea, they're white chairs. Okay, I love the Seychelles, as you know. I've been coming here for all the reasons that everybody knows. But because it's a small population, you can try something here and see if it works. So my advice generally is try something like lingerie or whatever it is, wedding dresses, in Seychelles first to see if it works. Then you understand who your market is here in Seychelles. There's Seychellois people. So with Alexandria, she sells to Seychellois people. Very good model. Then there's tourists. It's a big tourist economy. If you hate tourists, you probably want to go and sell to tourists. So people coming off the cruise ships, whatever it is. Then the final ones are the very rich people who seem to be building hotels and stuff. So whatever it is you want to do, you try it here first. Develop your case studies here first, using all the advantages of Seychelles. And then once you've done that, you can think, shall we go to another country? Now, I do this in Estonia, where they have 1.2 million, which is more than Seychelles, but a lot less than UK. And they're very good at trying something there. And I do workshops there, which is how to sell to the UK, or any country. And I can actually help them because I'm in London, if necessary. So always take everything as a positive. Seychelles is a small island. Everybody knows everybody, which I take to be a good thing. Because if somebody's a bit suspect, world will get around pretty quickly that, be careful of that person. Of course it's not, you're in a good family, therefore we're going to hire you. In fact, it may be the opposite. Because often rich families have spoilt children who think they don't have to earn a living. But no, Alexandra's just perfect. She said, I don't have a rich family, I don't do this. I took an extra job on. I've got a day job, I followed my passion, he achieved it here. Now she may decide, I only want to sell to Seychellois ladies. and that's a very good decision. You'll make a very nice living doing that. But if it's like people say, I'm from another country, you should be doing it in Dubai, you can have that conversation. But then you probably just license it. You design it here because you want to live here. You license it. You can use it in Dubai if you want. But no, take everything as a positive. I mean, everybody knows the advantages of Seychelles. And when it's like, well, people don't work very hard, they don't turn up on time, that happens everywhere. We get that in UK as well. And again, you want to find people who kind of get it. They want to turn up on time. They want to do a good job. They want to do good customer service. They want to be friendly, you know, local, reliable, nice. So that's it, really. Does that answer your question? Or would some of my colleagues care to?
I'll take that one as well, yeah. Actually, working in Seychelles as well. What I think about working in Seychelles and doing overseas, all right, I have 2 passports, I was born in England, etc. So it's kind of that much easier for me before the days of the internet. And then I did websites here, then I went to England and continued doing websites. But I think today, with things like ChatGPT especially, it will open up stuff for you as well. And you just really have to push. And with Facebook, with the marketing aspect of Facebook as well, whatever you do here, you can do it, you can test it, you can make all your mistakes because it doesn't matter, there's 100,000 people, the market's tiny. When you get it right, then you can actually use exactly the same thing and then go overseas. And as Alexandra's proved, that you can get outside Seychelles very quickly through Facebook, through Instagram, that we never had before. So that the whole world's open to you.
Start with your customer. Know your customer, understand what it is that they really want to accomplish. What's the outcome that they're looking for? And build your proposition around that. And narrow your market to a very, very tiny sliver. Don't try and serve everybody. Focus left-handed basketball players. And that's your niche. And stick with that. And you'll find those people all over the world. The mistake most organizations make and most entrepreneurs make is they think, oh, I sell to everybody. Anyone can buy my stuff. They can't. When I'm looking for customers, they fit into about 3% of my total market. Now, globally, that's a lot of people. You know, there's 7.6 billion people on the planet. 3% of them is more than I can service in 10 lifetimes. Don't be greedy. Go slow. And pick one thing at a time. So if you're going to develop your workplace application, then focus on very specific needs that people have, and go looking for people who are looking for the outcome that you can provide uniquely. But don't try and do another workforce or application tracking system, because there are thousands of them. I mean, in my sector, there are 36,000 vendors operating in the sales and marketing space. How many of them do you think have more than a 0.00001% market share? So get big, be a big fish in a very tiny pond. That would be my advice. But you can do that globally with the internet. Naomi.
I have 2 questions. The first part of my question is, what advice would you give a person that might lack the confidence to network and network well?
Why are they afraid of networking? Generally because they don't want to look stupid, or they may be an introvert. To be honest, no one's ever died from you, going up to someone and saying, hello, what do you do?
I had a heart attack, so.
Did you? Okay, but you're still here. And my best advice is be interested, not interesting. I don't know, have you ever been in a bar and a bloke comes up to you and tries to hit on you, and then they spend the entire evening talking about themselves? Are they in any way interesting? Okay. My experience is that that's generally a turn-off. So don't talk about you, talk about them. A great opener for networking, and this has worked brilliantly for me, is this the first time you've been to this event? To which there are only 2 answers, yes or no. If they say yes, you must have come for a reason. If they say no, you must have come back for a reason. Yeah? And it's just an easy icebreaker, so that's a simple answer. And you had a second part of the question?
In your opinion, what attributes or traits makes a great leader?
Humility, curiosity, compassion, trustworthiness.
A little dash of charisma, probably. Yeah, I mean, getting back to what you were saying about confidence. I mean, I've done a lot of networking over the years, not so much in recent years, I must admit, but when I met my good friend Claude here, he got me doing all sorts of networking, week in, week out, month in, month out. And I think when it comes to confidence, I mean, providing you like people, which I think you really do like people, of course, those intention statements and visualizations will help. And I think get plenty of sleep and just remember the passion you've got in the within the goals and work you're doing, and just get in, as Marcus said, become interested in people. And if we do have the one-to-one we spoke about earlier on, I can show you a good technique that will help.
Thank you.
When I teach sales, the first thing I teach is what I call networking on a beer mat, which are techniques for shy people to, I was doing a bit of it earlier, sort of asking open questions and so on. So that's a free download on my site. I'll send it to Claude. There's no sign up or anything. That's just something you can almost read like a manual. But for me, the main thing is, I speak to a lot of people, so I say, what do you do? And they start talking at me. And they talk, and they talk, and they talk, and they talk. And I'm listening, because I think, maybe if I listen, there'll be something there. Then some of them say, they just turn around and go away. They don't say, and what do you do, Mike? Now, those people I automatically discount, because they just want to talk about themselves. They're probably going to try and sell me something. They're not in the least bit interested in who I am. Just, cross them off the list. But no, everybody finds networking hard, even professionals. I've been doing it so long, I don't feel pain anymore. But we all have to do it. But it's just, you'll know in the first few minutes whether there's some kind of empathy going on. But have a look at the download, or I'll send it to Claude. And then good qualitative leader, agree 100% with everything they said. But I remember somebody, I can't remember who it said, if you can't communicate, you shouldn't be in the leadership business. Because they're the leader. They've thought through things. They thought, here's what we're going to do. They have to be able to communicate it really clearly and non-ambiguously. So, and communication as a whole, we could do a whole seminar on how to communicate. Hope that helps. There you go.
One more thing just come to my mind as Mike was talking. Think and do it now. Go to the networking event, just do it, and just ask about them and let them do all the talking, and then it's easy, really.
There's quite a fun gamey tactic, which is in a crowded room, as you walk through the door, look to the far end and wave between two people who aren't talking. And then keep doing that as you walk, zigzag your way through, and just keep waving to people as you go. And by the time you get to the end, lots of people have seen you do this, and then they think you're terribly popular. Yeah? And it does work, not always, but it does actually work.
That's a really good one. I actually wrote a book, which Marcus will remember, called Kissing Frogs. And it never really came into a real book. It was just an e-book, but did really well. And that's a prompt to actually get it again into a real book. But my motto, and it's got me very far, and it's got all these people here. I didn't know anybody really before a certain time. And I met all these guys through networking when I actually think about it. And if there's one thing that I can say, it's go out and have a laugh. Go out and have a laugh with the attitude of going out and have a laugh and having fun. And then the other one is this thing about the 3-foot rule or whatever. If somebody is within, like Marcus is on that square and I'm there, I must talk to him. And you have to set a trap for yourself to talk to the person. Now, I'll tell you something else as well, that you guys would remember this actually. Sometimes, and I think this is true in Seychelles as well, you never know who this person is because you don't know anything about him. He's just a guy. He could be like in here, where in a networking meeting, in a boardwalk or wherever, but you don't know who he is. And you don't know what his black book is like. You don't know what connections he's got. You don't know who's in here. He could be the president's cousin or whatever, right? No, straight. And you're just polite. You don't want anything at all. You're just polite. You're just somebody, you're very honest. You tell the truth. And that happened to me when I started groups in amazing hotels in England, and I had somebody, I'll never forget that, the Grosvenor House, I had somebody from Jack Barkley. The guy comes with a Bentley business card. He wasn't a great networker, right? He wasn't, I mean, it was a bit odd. But I managed to get all those people to come only because most of them I met at parties or social events, and I just spoke to that next person, not knowing who they were. They could have been anyone.
Remember that you sell through the network, not to the network. If you turn up and you pitch people and you're always looking over their shoulder, they're going to see you just as a leech and a shark. So definitely don't do that. And I recall I had a meeting with Sally Tennant, who at the time was CEO of Schroders Bank, and I tracked it back, and there were 10 points of connection that got me there. So be patient. That's the other thing. So you're not trying to sell. You're trying to create a human-to-human relationship, and you're trying to be referred on. So make yourself referable, and don't make it about the sale.
And what's the worst that can happen if you go to a networking event? And the answer is nobody remembers you. Nobody says, did you meet that terrible woman? Don't ever do business with her. They just, was there a lady there who did that? Well, this is my personal trial. No, get out there and do it. It gets easier with time, and you find it easier to talk to people. But if you're literally getting nothing back from somebody, say, anyway, nice to meet you, and you move on. I'll give you a top tip. This is a top tip for everybody. If you go to a networking event and somebody is boring you to death, they're just going on and on and on. Now, I would normally have a jacket on. So let's say somebody's being really, really boring. And I'll tell you what I did in 1973, What I do is, sorry, I take out my phone. I'm sorry, it's my wife. I have to take this call. It's called an exit script. Sorry if I don't answer this. Everybody needs an exit script. I need to go to the toilet. I'm going to get a drink. For somebody who is just boring you to death, because that's the worst thing. Did you meet that really boring man? That Mike Sutherland just went on about the Beatles and Estonia for 2 hours. Avoid him. If he comes in a room, go to the other end of the room. If he waves at you like Marcus does, pretend go the other side of them. Claude.
Any other questions? Any other questions? One question, all right, okay. All right. Sorry? Yeah, they do. Okay. All right, thank you very much. Eleanor, would you like to come up just for 2 minutes? Yeah. This almost brings us to the end of the seminar, and you all want to eat. So I'm going to give Eleanor, the last word, if you'd like. There's something specifically that you'd like to say.
Oh, that's something else. All I can say is, listen, what you have to understand is that Claude made this possible. I'm always in the shadows, okay? I'm just the person that he can lean on when there's crisis or he's like really, really overwhelmed. I'm that person who calms him down, but he made this happen. He contacted you. He's the seeker. He's the one who seeks out all those people, especially, right, Alexandria and all that. So he's a seeker. He's the connector. He's the relationship builder. He's the glue. And he's the builder. There you have it, Claude Beauté de Beauvalon.